At this time, I'd like to call the Nash County Board of Commissioners January the 4th, 2021 meeting to order. Wish to welcome everyone here. It is New Year's, our first meeting, and I won't say we're all delighted that 2020 is behind us, but there are certain aspects of it that we are. And we certainly hope for a much brighter year moving forward. I do think Nash County has done very well, and we're going to talk about our employees a little later on in the agenda, but it's just amazing what they were able to do and work us through the time that we have been in this year. But with that said, I will say that the Nash County Board of Commissioners do like to begin their meetings with a prayer by a commissioner. During this time, you're welcome to stand and join us in the prayer. You're welcome to use this time for your own prayer if you so like, or you're welcome to use it for a moment of silence, whichever you so choose. And we also begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I'll ask Commissioner Wayne Outlaw to join us in that. And at this time, I'd ask Dan Combs for the invocation. Commissioner Combs?
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for another beautiful day. Lord, we thank you for the blessings of life, Lord, that you give to us each and every day. Forgive us, Lord, when we take you so much for granted and don't give you the thanks that we should every day. Lord, we thank you for bringing us through 2020, Lord, and we know it's a year that we had a lot of trials and a lot of deaths and a lot of sickness, Lord, and we just thank you for bringing us through that, Lord, and we look forward to a 2021, and Lord, we know that you will look after us if we look to you, Lord, and for guidance. Lord, just pray now as we conduct the meeting this morning that we do, whatever we do it in the will of all good of all the people of Nash County, Lord, and we just pray that you would be with us during this time. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Would you join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners. We're now on item 4, which is approval of the minutes from the last month. In December, we did have 2 meetings, our regular meeting on December the 17th, and we had a special call, on December the 7th, and we had a special call meeting on December the 17th. You have those minutes in your packet on your iPad. At the time you're ready, I would entertain a motion for approval, or motion to revise, or a motion to approve as written, and that would be for both meetings.
Move for approval.
I have a motion to approve both sets of minutes. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
And a second. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Minutes stand approved. We thank you as always, Madam Clerk. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we are moving to item number 5. Item number 5 is a agenda item that allows any citizen that wishes to speak to the Board of Commissioners that anything you may have on your mind that is not otherwise covered on the agenda. We do ask if it's concerning a public hearing that we have as an item on the agenda, you would wait till that item comes up. But if it's anything else that you wish to speak to us about, it's a great time for us to hear from you. It's customary for us to not comment on public comments at the meeting. Our board generally likes to have the staff to look at anything that may come up and help us evaluate it prior to making any commitments or any real comments. But with that said, we do assure you we'll always get back with you. We do have a sign-up period out front before the meeting, and I did have 3 people to sign up this morning, and I will call those in the order in which they signed up. But if you happen to miss or didn't realize you needed to sign up and you're here and wish to speak to the board, we would still entertain hearing from you. And when you come up to the podium, we just ask that you state your name and address for the record. We do, as you can see, the way you're sitting, all we can to follow the rules that we are given as it relates to protecting everyone from COVID-19. This morning, we are going to be trying out a new item at the podium in cleaning that item, cleaning that area. You remember we have had the manager to wipe it down between each speaker, but this morning, after some research and a few calls that we received, we did find a machine that I think would be a lot more thorough, a lot more efficient, and we're just giving it a try this morning. The county has decided to purchase one of these if it works out well, and I'm sure it will. We have a representative, Kathleen, and Kathleen, is it Reagan or is it Regan?
It's Regan.
Regan, okay. I was almost sure it was, but every time I choose wrong. So, but welcome. You are with UV Innovations, which is somewhat a local company, and we're tickled to death to have you this morning. She will be performing the cleaning between each speaker. If you'll just pause a moment and allow her to do that. I haven't seen it done, so I really don't know how long that's going to take, whether it's an hour or whether it's 30 seconds or whether it's 5 seconds, but we all going to find out together. But I greatly appreciate you being here, and I think this will be an added addition for Nash County. The films that the board has watched on it certainly appear to be a improvement about the way we would be doing things, and I thank you for being here. With that said, have we cleaned it already? Is it already cleaned?
Everything has been sanitized.
Everything in the room? Okay,
Everywhere you're sitting, every microphone, everything.
okay, wonderful. All right, with that said, I'll call on our first speaker then, and it is Elijah Fobbs, I think, or did I pronounce that correctly, sir? Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Glad to have you this morning.
Thank you. Well, look, the problem that I'm having here, I live up there in Drake's community,
Yes, sir.
and we have a water drain problem. And I'm here today, and I have one of my neighbor, Patricia people. She's 5586, and I'm 5587. Darren Drive, right there in Drake.
Yes, sir.
And the problem that we got is when the water, comes down off of Brattleboro Railroad Road, and it's supposed to drain back down to 48, but it gets there and it stops in places, and it's backing up in our yard. We haven't had anything done to it in the last 50 years. Back in the old days, I think the state used to come through there with the thing and dig out the ditches and keep them clean so the water can flow. But they haven't done that over 50 years. And we have some driveways there that they don't, the resident doesn't even have a driveway. So the water can flow, and stuff.
Okay.
And we was just here today, ask our community and see what could, y'all do, or where we can go and find some help to get this problem done, because it's began to be a big problem for us. So that was our complaint that we have today.
Okay. Probably a real big problem after the last 4 days, I'm sure.
Yes, sir. And it's killing us in the summertime. With all the water standing, the mosquitoes out there, it's killing us.
The drive that you live on, Mr. Fobbs, is it a state maintained or is it a
Yes,
private
sir.
drive? It does have a SR number
Yes,
and
sir.
it's maintained by the state.
I think it's 1562. I'm not for sure, something like that. I know it's 1562, something in there.
Okay.
But it is a state road.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate you being here, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Could you get your address, your home address?
Yes, sir. 5587 Darren Drive, that's D-E-R-R-I-N-G. Yeah, Brattleboro, North Carolina. Okay.
So it's 1 second, 1 inch. It kills COVID, MRSA, any pathogens. No chemicals.
Thank you, Ms. Reagan. Next speaker is Patricia Peoples.
Yes, I was on behalf of Elijah.
Okay. Okay, so you just, okay. All right. Well, you had signed up, but I certainly want to give you a moment to speak if you wish to, but if you ditto what he said, that's fine. Thank you for being here this morning. Our next speaker then is Dorothy Battle. Good morning, Ms. Battle.
Good morning. Good morning to all, giving honor to God for our presence. My name is Dorothy Gibson Battle, 13343 Taylor Store Road, Nashville, NC 27856. I'm here before you today with the same complaint, Mr. Ted Williams, yard dog, firearms training, now called Force. Mr. Williams has not stopped his activities and continues to disturb and upset us with his loud noise from hours of gunfire. I called the sheriff's office on Sunday, 12/27/2020, because of the level of noise and continued loud, rapid shooting. We had already endured the same Christmas Eve and the day after Christmas. I was told by Deputy Johnson that he had already received multiple complaints. There was nothing he could do about it as long as he was shooting away from and not at anyone. He said he would add my name to the list of complaints. I decided to leave home, as I often do when I can no longer tolerate the noise. I left, and as I passed the shooting site, I saw Mr. Williams locking the gate, preparing to leave. He was driving his gray truck and pulling the large enclosed trailer. I have emailed the clerk of the Board of Commissioners, Ms. Evans, Planning Director, Mr. Adam Tysons, and Commissioner Marvin Arrington concerning the matter, trying to understand the commissioner's progress in the activities of the shooting range. I have been assured efforts are underway for a proper resolution. Also, Mr. Williams has a court appearance with a court-appointed lawyer later this month for an ordinance violation. Watchfully, with patience, I'll wait for that which is fair and just. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Battle. And Commissioner did receive a copy of the response that Mr. Tyson sent to you with your email over the weekend or right at the end of last week. We thank you for being here again this morning, and we certainly appreciate your patience. Is there anyone else that wished to speak that didn't realize they needed to sign up that's not on the agenda somewhere else? Okay, seeing no one rising, we'll move on to item number 6, and I would call on Andy Aggie for this presentation or the beginning of it. Are we ready, Andy? Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, I guess I was expecting
Mr. Chairman,
him to be here. Yes, sir.
that issue, I know we don't discuss them after.
Yes, sir.
Can we take that up when we go into our closed session?
I'm not sure we can do that. I
Yeah, well,
will
we can
certainly ask the attorney.
Ask the attorney.
I will do that. Be glad to do that. And did you get the email and read what Mr. Tyson has going on?
No, I didn't read it.
Okay, okay,
I have an idea, that's the reason I
okay, all right. We'll,
want to discuss it.
okay, we'll ask them, and we'll either discuss it in closed session, which I don't think we're gonna be able to do, but we'll discuss it after
Well,
closed
if we
session.
can't, that's fine, but
Okay, all right,
I want to share an idea that I have.
sure, okay. Thank you, sir.
It may be expensive, but I think it would solve the problem.
Okay, be glad to hear from you.
Well, good
Good morning,
morning,
sir.
and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
From an economic development perspective, I thought what better way to start the new year by inviting Chris Chung, who's the CEO of the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. And Chris heads up a great team of people that we work with closely every day and every week in trying to bring jobs and capital investment to Nash County and North Carolina. So I thought it'd be great to invite Chris to join us here today, this morning, and to kind of give us an update on the EDP&C, as well as his thoughts of an overview of what for us to expect this year in regards to economic development. So I'll turn it over to Chris. He can, I understand from Jonathan, he can hear us, and he will be able to take questions and answer questions.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Chris?
Good morning, Chris.
Great. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you very much, Andy. Hopefully I'm coming through okay in the room.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. I don't know if we have audio or video set up as well. I was told that I could share a few slides if I had them, so I'm not sure what everyone's viewing capabilities are.
That, we'll be able to see him, I'm sure, Chris.
All right, fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and put that up here.
We see
Well, again,
you
thank
well.
you very much for everyone accommodating me this morning to come in with you all virtually. What I thought I would do at Andy's request, as you heard, is just kind of give you all a quick overview of what we've been seeing over this past year as a result of the pandemic. Tell you a little bit about what we forecast coming up in 2021, and then even some thoughts on how communities like Nash County can position themselves. We've certainly seen a lot of changes to how economic development is being done in the past 10 months. I expect some of those changes are going to be short term once we get this thing behind us. Some of those changes could be longer term. I think the important thing is I don't think anyone is trying to predict anything right now. All predictions kind of go out the window when you come across something like what we've seen with this global pandemic. But I'm going to do my best to let you all know what we're seeing, what we think that means in terms of future activity. But as we all learned last year, like I said, anyone who's saying that they can predict what will happen in the future is probably about as correct or incorrect as ever. So I'm going to go ahead and just give a quick introduction to the organization. Economic Development Partnership. A lot of folks may recognize what we do as what used to be housed within the North Carolina Department of Commerce. Our work is focused on 5 areas. Business recruitment is probably what we are best known for. That, of course, involves efforts to attract companies to locate operations here. For us, that work is usually manufacturing companies, headquarters, other types of office-based facilities, food processing, data centers. We don't get into retail, so we're not out there, for example, trying to attract a new Chick-fil-A or a new Best Buy. That's not the type of operation we focus on at state level. We tend to work with the types of opportunities involving companies that have some pretty broad latitude over where they choose to locate, hence the focus on manufacturers, headquarters, and the like. As I said, even though that's the work that we are best known for, it's not the only way that we tackle economic development at a state level. We also work very closely with existing firms across the state to help them figure out whether they're in position to expand right now, and if so, what resources and services could we connect them to help make that expansion possible. That could be workforce support, that could be incentives, that could be infrastructure support. There's a lot of different things that expanding companies who are already here need. And if we can help get those companies the help they need, that hopefully puts them in position to expand faster than they would otherwise, begin to add jobs and make investment in their communities. We also focus on international trade assistance. So that's helping a lot of manufacturing companies already here in North Carolina, smaller and medium-sized firms, to grow their export sales overseas. Finding new customers in international markets, doesn't matter if it's Europe, Asia, Middle East, Latin America, Africa. The job here is if we can help existing North Carolina companies find more customers for their products, that's going to help them grow faster here in North Carolina to meet that demand. We also do work around small business startup assistance. This is primarily helping individuals launch their companies in North Carolina. So again, whether you're starting a landscape business, a home healthcare business, a food truck, there's certain steps of that process that you need to take to begin operating as a business in our state. We're helping individuals walk through each of those early steps that they need to take. Last but not least, tourism promotion also falls within the EDP&C's responsibility. Our job is to market North Carolina as a leisure travel destination. So you can imagine during this pandemic, when a lot of people have been holding off on doing leisure travel, we've certainly seen some of our biggest effects from the pandemic in this area of our work. But as I said, that work normally involves going out there and advertising and marketing North Carolina as a travel destination to would-be visitors outside of North Carolina, in the U.S. as well as around the world. The organization is relatively new. We celebrated our 6th birthday a few months ago. We are a nonprofit 501c3 organization, not a state agency, but the work that we do is under contract with a state agency, and that is the North Carolina Department of Commerce. The functions that I just described us performing on the state's behalf, those used to be within the North Carolina Commerce Department until 6 years ago, when the legislature authorized the Commerce Department to contract these functions out to a nonprofit. That's how the EDPNC came about in 2014. We are governed as CEO. I'm fired and hired by a board of directors that's appointed both by the governor as well as the legislative leadership. We have one board member from the Rocky Mount area, Larry McAdams. Some of you know Larry. He's an appointee of the governor's. He's been on our board, I think, for a couple of years now. But that board is statewide. It's business people. And of course, like I said, that is who drives the organization from a leadership standpoint. At a staff level, we're about 65 employees, most of us here at the office in downtown Raleigh, but we have a number of staff who are distributed around the state who focus on that existing business support function that I talked about. And then as a nonprofit, we're also supported by private sector investors, construction companies, banks, utilities, real estate developers, engineering firms, all contributing anywhere from $5,000 a year to $100,000 a year on top of the funding we receive from the state for this contract that we perform. That gives us additional resources from the private sector to put towards the 5 areas of our mission that I spoke about. Now, let me talk briefly about what we've seen in the 10 months since COVID-19 hit the United States in earnest. Back in March, like a lot of economic development groups, Andy is well aware of the number of deals that we work on at any given time. Hopefully, many of those deals that can look in Nash County, I'll get to that here in a second. But that total universe of projects that we were working on back in March of 2020, almost a year ago, shrank very quickly in the first weeks and months of the pandemic. You can imagine companies that we were talking to at that time, whether they were thinking about setting up a new manufacturing facility, whether they're thinking about relocating their headquarters from where they are today. A lot of those plans got put on hold as soon as people began to realize how serious this pandemic would be. No surprise, these are companies investing tens, hundreds of millions of dollars on a new location. Before you pull the trigger on that, of course, you want to make sure that the economy is going to be the same as what you had planned this expansion to address. And of course, for many of our companies, that turned out not to be the case, and that's why we saw a lot of those deals drop out of our pipeline of projects. The deals that we did have moving much more slowly. Again, I think that was a combination of wanting to see how the pandemic unfolded, but of course also wanting to see more broadly what the after effects on the economy would look like and whether or not that still changed the plans that these companies have for expanding, locating operations. The encouraging thing that we saw in the second half of the year, so one metric that we track, of course, is the number of new projects that we get in through the year. So these are companies that engage EDPNC at the state level. And they basically say, all right, we're looking at North Carolina for a brand new food processing plant or an aircraft parts manufacturing facility. Every month, we're seeing new projects like that, requests for proposals that come from clients that are interested in North Carolina. Usually, we're one of several states that they're looking at. That amount of new project activity every month was way down in March, April, and May compared to those same months in 2019. And that's no surprise. I think that obviously directly tied to the pandemic and the pandemic's uncertainty that it cast the plans for these companies. Really starting in June, and pretty much every month since June, with the one exception of October, we have seen significantly more new projects coming in through the door in 2020 than we did for that same month in 2019. And that's very encouraging. November and December, two great examples. November and December are usually very slow months for us. As we get towards the end of the year and the holiday season, no surprise, but companies really aren't looking that aggressively, or they're going to punt those plans into the new year. I think because we saw a lot of promising news on the vaccine front, because the light at the end of the tunnel is becoming more apparent to the public and to the business community, we saw in November 40% more projects than we did in November of 2019. And in December, I think it was, my math is correct, 70% more new projects in the door than we saw in December of 2019. And so both of those are, again, very encouraging signs that companies are beginning to factor in the end of the pandemic as they look at their future growth plans. And that's a reason why we've seen a major uptick in new projects coming in through the door. As local economic developers can tell you, like you could as well, while they're site visits, so when companies are looking at North Carolina and looking at sites, buildings, and communities for their projects, for a few months there, they were trying to do as much of that virtually as possible. At some point, they had to get back out in the field, conduct visits in person, safely, but in person. Again, when you're spending 10 million or 100 million on new factories, you're not going to do that entire process virtually. That's just too much of an unknown. You go out there, hires in person. We certainly saw that again starting up in June, and that's continued through the end of 2020. We expect 2021. I'm sure we already have site visits scheduled with companies that are coming in, insisting on viewing these locations in person before they make a decision. So real quickly, what do we expect in terms of the new normal or 2021 and some of the trends that we expect that are going to unfold, maybe already have unfolded starting in 2020? It always helps to contrast this to what we saw before the pandemic. Before March, we had a high water mark of job announcements in 2019. Projects all across the state resulting in more than 21,600 announced new jobs in 2019. That was a great year for North Carolina. Again, a lot of projects in all different diverse geographic areas of the state. All of you know this is a very large, very diverse state. It is more than just Charlotte and the Triangle, and of course, what we do with deals all across the state. And that was true in 2019, and the numbers show it. We also entered 2020 with a really strong pipeline of active projects, companies that were specifically looking at North Carolina either for new locations to expand their existing operation. Those were two big trends that we were very excited to start last year with, and the pandemic turned very quickly on its head. For a few months there, we were really concerned about what our results would look like for 2020 because so much of our pipeline contracted from companies that basically canceled or postponed their plans for a new location or expansion because of uncertainty from the pandemic. As I said, the second half of the year turned out to be a very different story than what we were feeling in those first few months of COVID-19. Another before pandemic trend that we were seeing was especially for a lot of office projects, which are about 30% of the deals that we work on. So about 70% of the deals that we work on are manufacturing, food processing, distribution, logistics, that sort of thing. The other 30% tend to be professional services, headquarters, research and development, those types of office-based projects. For those office deals before the pandemic, it wasn't just that companies were focused on markets like the Triangle, Charlotte, because those are, of course, large labor pools that companies hire from. Within those markets, they were really starting to focus more and more in recent years on 4 downtown areas, those markets. Downtown Durham, downtown Raleigh, downtown Charlotte, the south end of Charlotte. Those are the types of areas that we saw companies really focusing on. Probably because they felt like locating in those very vibrant, dense urban neighborhoods would give them the best chance to hire the type of talent that they were looking to hire, especially millennial talent and younger workers. They felt like if they located in those kinds of downtown neighborhoods where their employees could live, work, and play all within a few city blocks of one another, that would make them a more appealing employer to the types of workers they were trying to hire. And again, I think there's a lot of truth in that when you look at what companies are looking for and what employees in that generation and age range are looking for. After the pandemic, I'm not sure that some of those core urban neighborhoods are going to seem as appealing, because if anything has taught us, this pandemic has taught us anything, it's that something like a highly infectious disease has a greater chance of spreading when you cram a bunch of people into a relatively small area. It's the reason you're seeing big cities like New York, San Francisco, Chicago lose so much of their population that's not coming back, if they're worried about taking public transportation, getting in an elevator, going up a skyrise into their office or to their apartments. That kind of density for urban areas, that's been exposed by the pandemic as a riskier thing than people ever would have thought. And that's probably going to mean companies second guess the need to be in that kind of location. So does that mean they now locate more in the suburbs of somewhere like Raleigh, Durham, or Charlotte? I think that's entirely possible. Could they even locate further out than kind of the traditional suburban markets like Cary or Apex here in the Triangle? Does that mean they could locate in places like a Rocky Mount or Nash County? That's entirely possible, but you never say never. Really is going to depend on each company. I think for us, the general trend of companies, again, office employers, focusing as much as they have in the past on downtown urban neighborhoods, I definitely think that's going to change. And again, that even assumes companies decide they need the kind of physical office that they used to depend on before the pandemic. We're definitely going to see a lot more employers shifting to some aspect of remote work. And again, a lot of employers in the professional services field, that's very possible. We have about a dozen people that have been working out of this office the past 6 or 7 months. Everyone else has been able to work from home, and we really haven't missed a beat. And I think that's what a lot of employers are going to be looking at. So assuming they even still need the big offices they used to depend on, where those offices get located, that's going to be one of those trends that we believe will change quite a bit heading into 2021. Let me kind of close out here. Oh, sorry, I thought I had another slide. Give me 1 second here. The things that I was going to suggest in terms of what I would urge Rocky Mount to consider. Let me switch out here. I'm going to pull up a different presentation. I thought I had this in the one that I just gave to you. But I was going to close with this, call it pointers or advice, just things that we would suggest local communities continue to focus on in this new environment. And let's see here. Go ahead and put this up here. So I think as we look at more of these projects coming in to North Carolina in 2021, product is still going to be very important. For us, when we talk about product, we're talking about two things. One is workforce. Even though unemployment is higher than it was a year ago and continues to remain high because of the pandemic, that doesn't mean every employer has overnight had all of their workforce shortage issues resolved. That was one of the biggest things employers were worried about. We came into 2020 last year. We were in a hot job market, very good economy, and both of those things resulted in a lot of employers, especially manufacturing employers, struggling to find qualified applicants for the type of work that they perform. I don't think that issue has gotten much better, in spite of unemployment being 2 to 3% higher in most cases where we were a year ago. Because when you look at where the unemployment is actually higher, it's been in a lot of service industries like tourism, travel, and hospitality. It hasn't necessarily translated into a lot of manufacturing employees now being available to work at another company. And so folks in Nash County, as well as the other 99 counties, continue to need to address this with not only their local employers. I think one of the conversations hopefully each of you as county commissioners is having is talking to local employers to understand what difficulty they're having finding qualified applicants for the jobs that they're posting, even in this economy where unemployment is higher. Because if they're still having challenges finding qualified people locally, that tells you where you're going to need to focus some of your economic development efforts. The other part of product is real estate. For the 70% of deals that we work on that are manufacturing, Andy knows this because when we get those requests from companies coming in, looking interested in North Carolina, we're almost immediately out there to our local partners like Andy to say, all right, we've got this manufacturing company. They need this size building or this size site, what they're planning to do. What do you have in Nash County that meets this need? If Nash County doesn't have sufficient real estate, and that could be in the form of developed shovel-ready industrial sites, or it could be in the form of vacant, modern buildings that companies can move into. If you don't have either of those two things in sufficient quantities, unfortunately, Nash County will not get very far in consideration because chances are we're going to have those choices elsewhere in North Carolina, and that's where our companies, our clients are going to want to focus at. So I would say, in addition to, of course, a good question to stay on top of is, what does your real estate situation look like? Your industrial parks, your industrial sites, and your industrial buildings. Again, because 70% of those deals that we're working on here at a state level and bringing Andy into the fold on tend to be manufacturing or industrial related. Retraining of workers is also going to be something that I suspect a lot of communities in Carolina are going to be looking at, especially if they are tourism dependent or tourism heavy. It's going to take a while for tourism to bounce back. It's going to take a while for some of these service industries to bounce back. Basically, folks are concerned about traveling, if they're concerned about sitting in restaurants, if restaurants can't open at full capacity, if hotels can't open at full capacity, if convention centers cannot operate at full capacity, that means that there's going to be displacement from those industries in terms of laid off employees for a lot longer than just a few weeks or a few months. We definitely saw that in 2020, and we're going to unfortunately continue seeing those effects well into 2021 as everyone hopefully gets vaccinated quickly. Is there a chance for some of those employees to transition into other industries where there is considerably more demand for employment than there used to be before the pandemic? Like I said, we are seeing certain sectors do very well. Food and beverage is a great example where we are seeing a lot of activity by companies looking to set up new manufacturing plants. A few of them have looked in the Rocky Mount area in recent months. Unfortunately, some of them have gone because, again, real estate ended up being the biggest challenge. But take someone from the service industry, can you retrain them, get them into a position for career track in the manufacturing economy where jobs are still in very good demand? That's definitely something that we expect a lot of communities will be thinking about. I sent Andy a note a few months ago complimenting them on the new Nash County Economic Development website. I think right now, with so many companies avoiding in-person travel until it's absolutely necessary, means that the way that they're going to gather more of their information to do due diligence on a potential location is, of course, going to be through the internet and through Zoom meetings, through some of these online engagement and communications tools. I think that's something that a lot of economic development groups have had to shift to a lot more in the past 9 months because of the new way of doing business until we get this pandemic behind us. So again, that's something that I think is Nash County's already made some good strides in the past few months. It's going to be something that they need to continue staying focused on. Sectors of opportunity, like I said, there's going to be some industry sectors that are doing very well because of the effects of the pandemic. Food and beverage being one of them, as people dine out less and as they prepare more food at home or consume more meals at home, prepackaged food and products or food products that can be prepared at home, that's going to be what's driving a lot of the activity we see on the business recruitment front. Another area is e-commerce fulfillment and distribution centers. I don't know about you all, but the amount of stuff that we have purchase as a household from online versus going to a local store, local retailer, has climbed dramatically in the past 10 months. That's going to, of course, drive greater demand for the types of big physical facilities that can store, inventory those products, and get them to customers that are ordering. Last thing I would say for communities like Nash County, especially being on the essentially part of the Research Triangle region, which is, of course, one of the fastest growing, not just here in North Carolina, but all across the U.S. Not only are there going to probably be some people living in Raleigh and Durham today who have decided that they'd like to live a little further outside of the cities themselves, but as the region as a whole attracts people moving from the New Yorks and San Franciscos, don't want to be in the big cities, that presents opportunities for areas like Nash County to attract those remote workers and those residents. Those residents, of course, pay property taxes, they shop locally, they dine locally, they educate their kids in your schools. That is tremendous economic development opportunity in the form of attracting that piece of population. To do so means that you need to have the quality of place that these individuals are looking for. And so whether that's quality K-12 schools, whether that's quality of retail or healthcare opportunities, whether that's even quality of things like a vibrant downtown or Main Street that's got good businesses for individuals to visit and shop at. All of these things, of course, make up what someone determines to be quality of life. And by focusing on ensuring that you've got that good quality of life, I think communities like Nash County are certainly in position to attract some of those people who decide they don't really want to live in big cities or even medium-sized cities anymore because of what the pandemic has shown to be the risks of that type of lifestyle. And for that type of individual, as they decide where they're going to live, and if they can remote work, that's going to be an opportunity for a lot of our communities in North Carolina, but especially those communities that are more in the periphery of our high growth metro regions. So again, that would be something I think unique to Nash County to consider. Well, think about your economic development strategy going forward. So with that, Andy told me I think about 20 minutes of comments. I think that's where I am right now. Happy to take questions from the commissioners, but again, I really appreciate the chance to kick off the year with you all. I share your all sentiment that hopefully it's at least a more normal, if not brighter year ahead for all of us.
Thank you, Mr. Chung, for taking time this morning to address the Nash County Board of Commissioners. And at this time, any commissioners have any questions or comments of Mr. Chung?
Yeah, I do.
Mr. Belfield, please go ahead, sir.
I'm thinking several notes I made here. Retraining workers. Is this the time to be at this point while we're in this pandemic situation here with COVID-19 that we would want to be retraining workers?
I would argue yes. I mean, I think there are going to be some industries that, because of the reduced demand from the pandemic, again, think of leisure, hospitality, travel, and tourism as being some of these sectors that have shed the most jobs. Whether that's nationally, whether that's in North Carolina, the biggest job losses have come from those sectors where, again, either customers are unwilling or unable to patronize those businesses. Of course, that means lower demand. That means less need for employment. When we eventually get the pandemic behind us, there's a lot of question about whether or not some of these industries will have figured out, one, how quickly they'll rebound, right? Just because there's a high, vaccine available to everyone, does that mean people are going to resume the same habits they had in February of last year? There's a lot of uncertainty about that. And so if you're going to see some of these sectors with long-term reduced employment, basically they're not going to be hiring back people that have lost their jobs in these sectors for the past 10 months. Well, those individuals, if they have no job to return to in those sectors where they are trained for, they have to find employment somewhere else. If there's just not enough restaurants, hotels, tourism attractions that are hiring people back, for example, what happens to those employees and those individuals? We don't, we want to make sure there's a safety net, but at some point we also want those individuals to get back into gainful employment to support themselves and their families. And if they can't do it in the sectors where they were originally trained for, that means they need to find new opportunities, and they need to focus probably on sectors that are growing and that continue to have high demand for trained, qualified employees. And right now, that's probably going to be in some sectors outside of areas like the leisure and hospitality industry. Again, I think we all hope that leisure and travel and tourism bounce back some by the end of 2021. How much it bounces back and whether or not that translates into 100% of those employees getting their jobs back, I don't know that anyone can say that. And so as economic developers, we've got to focus on, well, how do we attract the jobs that individuals can get, but also how do we make sure that individuals are in position to apply successfully for those jobs? It does us no good to attract companies that are hiring 1,000 skilled manufacturers. We don't have 1,000 skilled applicants who can fill those positions. And so I think that's the question that communities, especially our tourism dependent communities, are going to have to look at is what are the high demand industries? And if travel is not one of those high demand industries for the foreseeable future, unless we want to lose those people to move somewhere else where they can find a job, travel and tourism, we got to figure out how to train them up for the jobs that are here in our communities, in our state right now.
Well, to me, when you retraining workers, you need to know what the trend in the future is going to be. We know some jobs that are lost will never come back, but we need to know in what direction, what the trends are going to be in the future in the next 5, 10, 15 years. And then slot that into what we call retraining. That's why I asked that question about doing that right now, not really knowing, projecting and studying what the future opportunities in economic development is going to be.
I would agree with you there that, of course, it's hard for any of us to predict the future. I never make any claims myself as to what will happen in a year from now, let alone 5 or 10 years. Generally speaking, though, you can see where more and more jobs are going to require some background in technology, whether that's artificial intelligence, whether that's automation, whether that's data analytics, so using a lot of data, of course, to try to predict what will happen. Those are some of the fastest growing fields long before the pandemic. And I think the pandemic has probably increased the need for companies and workers in those same areas. Again, whether that's in platforms like e-commerce or facilitating remote work and things like what we're doing now, video conferencing. Those all depend on individuals who have backgrounds in things like software development. So yeah, I agree. It's hard to predict the future, but you can also look big picture at where things are headed. And in many cases, the pandemic has actually accelerated the pace of change to move us faster towards what people thought would be 10 years away is now here already. For example, just this idea that we can remote work in office environments. I'll be the first to admit I was skeptical about that back in March. I still think there's benefit to being here in person, but we have made it work by and large 95% of the time and did it a lot faster than if we had just sort of done it on our own pace because we all had to make that adjustment at the beginning of the pandemic. So what these changes look like and what they lead to in terms of economic development, I think, again, hard to predict, but there's some outlines there that communities can certainly already see.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, Phil, do you have something else?
I do, but I won't take up any more time. I just
Let me ask the other commissioners, then if we have
Yeah,
more time,
yeah,
I'll come
I
back.
have 2 or 3 other things, but I'm willing to yield.
Okay.
And
Thank you, sir. Other commissioners have any questions at this time? This is a rare opportunity that we have Mr. Chung with us this morning. Mr. Chung, I do have one. In your remarks, when you were talking about real estate, you used the wording, let me find it, vacant modern buildings to have available. You did not mention shell buildings, which is a focus of Nash County and has been for quite a while. Would you consider a shell building and a vacant modern building of equal value in what we are doing?
Absolutely. In fact, I think I would, yes, I include shell buildings in that, but I actually believe shell buildings are probably seen as more important than a vacant building that was previously used by another company. A shell building is usually designed to have some degree of flexibility depending on the end user who ends up occupying the facility. Whereas if you move into a building that used to be used by another company, you're already trying to figure out how you can make that layout work for your operation. So I think shell buildings are cut above just the run-of-the-mill vacant building, because shell buildings by definition will be modern. They're constructed with more of the modern features that companies are looking at. But like I said, the added advantage of a shell building is flexibility, and in many cases, room to expand very easily. So yes, I'm glad Nash County is looking at that. I think the communities that we've seen that have constructed shell buildings in the past few years have all had a lot of success in getting companies to look there, and in many cases, actually getting companies to move into their spec or shell construction.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we were on the right track on that. It's hard to find a vacant modern building. That's what we don't want, because that means we've lost an industry.
You are very correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
And so I'm really glad that you guys are focused on spec buildings.
Thank you. No one else? Mr. Belfield, you have one more you want to bring up?
I'll just let it go.
Okay. Well, again, we greatly appreciate you being here, Mr. Chung, and I would just say in closing, on behalf of the board, if you would consider the fact that we are new, we are in our baby stage, have been here 1 year this month, and I'll just ask you for, on behalf of the board, just a little bit of extra help. If you'll get us a good industry here, or help us get us here, then we'll stand on our own from that point on. If we could close with that request. I know that's a big request. You got a big state to carry, to look after, but just a little extra help would be greatly appreciated by Nash County, sir.
Well, of course, and I will say Andy and Susan and the rest of the Nash County team do a good job staying in front of us to make sure that we're aware of the latest going on in the community. So, and of course, they always want to know when the next RFP or a project is coming down the pike that Nash County can compete for. So we appreciate the ongoing outreach and partnership that we have with Nash County Economic Development.
Thank you. And if it's anything that you see our board needs to do, if you were asked our Andy or Susan to let us know, we would be glad and ready to move forward with it. And thank you again for being here this morning.
That sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. You all have a great day and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, sir. Andy, did you need to add anything in closing? Are you good?
No, I think it went over very well, and good questions and good feedback.
Okay, thank you, sir. With that said, we'll move on to item number 7, which, and I appreciate very much on behalf of the board you setting that up for us. That's the first time we've had an appearance by Mr. Chung, and very interesting, and understand a little bit better now that maybe we are doing the right things, and we certainly appreciate what our new department is doing for us. Item number 7 is approval of Need Incorporated Community Service Block Grant that comes up each January. It's for funding for the 21-22 year. Stacy, are you going to introduce anyone, or are they just going to come forward?
They're on their way.
Okay, I have Ms. Cole on my agenda, and we greatly appreciate you being here this morning.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
And I'll let you introduce the person you have with you. That's not on my notes.
Yes, sir. I have with me Mr. Julius Moody. He is our Community Service Block Grant Program Director. He is probably about 4 or 5 months, 5 months in. So he's getting some on-the-job training. So first, I would like to thank you and Ms. Stacy for giving us the time to be up here. Just for some background, Community Service Block Grant is a federally funded program. We do this, like you said, it's normally every February, but because of COVID and the hopeful increase in CARES funding, the Office of Economic Opportunity is kind of speeding things up, so we won't get caught up in backlog. So with that being said, we are requesting, well, no, let me take that back, I'm sorry. We have been allocated $524,123 for this year, and that amount is based off of the SAPE and the census from 2018. So one of our strategic goals, as I saw when I first took this interim position, is we have to, as a community agency, in the next census, be more involved with the community, because that number and that formula is based off the census data that is received. So what we had to do very quickly was Nash County, out of that 524, Nash County will receive $164,103. Of that, we are taking into, we looked at some of our data and trended out some of the needs that we saw in the last 2 to 3 years. And Mr. Moody will explain what those needs were and what our attempts are as we move forward in our application process.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure being here. Just want to say I am a Nash County resident. Well, grew up in Nash County, went to Nash County School, so it's great to be back in the area. And community outreach is really important to me. And like she said, I've only been at Need for about 4 to 5 months, but we're doing great work and are going to continue to do great work as well. So some of the outcome measures that we did a community assessment throughout Nash, Edgecombe, and Wilson counties. And some of the 3 areas that, well, it's a couple more than 3, but some of the areas that we did find individuals need assistance with is employment, housing, transportation, and affordable health care. We plan to serve these areas and our clients by first having great case management by all of our case managers, making sure that we evaluate and assess each client to make sure that we're helping them get above that poverty level and to help them become more self-sufficient. We will educate on economic growth, provide job readiness to help gain better employment and wages. We'll do that by also helping with resume building to make sure that the resume is up to par to the job that they're actually qualifying and applying for. We'll educate on affordable health care as well. One of the goals a lot of our clients reached to us out this year and also in our community assessment was health care. A lot of clients can't afford it, or a lot of clients don't know how to actually search for it or actually gain it. Educate the community on the needs of our clients to make sure that the community knows the issues and all of the problems that our community is having. Also, I said one of the most important things was housing. A lot of our clients are unavailable to find housing because of credit. So one of our goals next year is to help clients gain better credit, and we're going to partner with different community programs and also credit repair programs to help get that credit score above the minimum to make sure they're actually able to qualify for housing. One of our main goals also is to partner with each county local government next year, much more than we've done in the past, to make sure that we're gaining those good partnerships and community actions to make sure that we're working together as a team as well.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. If you don't mind me asking, where did you attend school when you left Nash County?
University of Maryland.
University of Maryland. Okay.
Yes, sir.
You seem very relaxed doing what you're doing this
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
I love it. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for us?
Any questions, Mr. Cole, from commissioners?
Yes.
Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, I'd like to say, well, I'm Marvin Aaron, I'm the newest member on the Board of Commissioners. So you come here every year with the grant. Why does the grant require you to come to the county commissioners
It is in the public law, and I can get you the actual number if you like, but it is in the public law that we ask the county commissioners to agree with what we are proposing to do, and then we send that certification to the State Office of Economic Opportunity. And it's just their way of ensuring that the county knows exactly what we're trying to do within the community.
Right. So we are oversight.
Yes, sir.
You know, I read your budget, so you said you're going to have 100 participants, and you're going to get 40 out of poverty. Did you achieve that goal last year?
Last year, so let me first state that I am the interim. I am just now getting acclimated with what actually happened with CSBG last year. We did meet all of our goals last year, from what I can recall, but then in the midst of it, COVID happened, so we didn't get as many above poverty because COVID happened and people just started coming in, and we started really changing our efforts towards emergency to evictions, utilities, and the things of the CARES Act.
Okay. Like I said, your grant also say, you know, require a public hearing, and you say you had one on December the 14th. How did you send out that notice that you said in your grant that we were notified?
We put it on our website, as well as, because of the way OEO, the Office of Economic Opportunity, is doing things, they allowed us to do it via Zoom. So what we did was we reached out to all the clients we had served in each county, Mr. Moody and his team, and we did a Zoom meeting, and we had, what, 20 or so? 25 so people, but we also asked for people, if they wanted to be a part of it, to contact Cynthia, our program assistant, and she would give them the link.
Okay. Well, our request in the future, can you send it to that, when you're going to have your public meeting, to our county administrator, so we can know, you know, sometimes we don't get to the, well, maybe your website or whatever, but since we are one of the oversight committees, could you make sure that we know exactly when that,
Yes, sir.
when that's going to happen? So I see that you're going to serve like 35 people in Nash County out of the 100. And hopefully next year you can come back and tell us how you are able to move those, the 40 people out of your 100 out of poverty. Are those going to be 40 individuals or 40 families?
Both.
Okay.
Both. And thanks to Mr. Chung's presentation, one of the things that I wrote down was we really need to set up a appointment with him so we can start seeing what some of the trend is in the new training, and what he is seeing is coming to Nash County, so we can partner with the different community colleges to make sure individuals are ready to be job ready.
Okay. Thank you. And I think one of the reasons the stature that why you have to come before us is since we're kind of like an oversight committee, so we want to make sure that you're spending the taxpayer dollars to really help people move out of poverty into employment and productive citizens. Good luck, and I hope you work very hard on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Other questions or comments from the board? Again, we appreciate you being here this morning. I do know you're the interim director, interim director. Greatly appreciate you agreeing to do that. It's got to be a hard job, I'm sure, to walk into a multifunction organization like you're doing. I know you have some experience in certain aspects of it for a long time, but from all that I hear, and I do talk to Stacy quite a bit about what's going on at Need. Seems like you're doing a great job, and we appreciate it.
Thank you so much, but not without her help and Mr. Bedfield's help.
Well,
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I serve on the board
Yes, sir.
representing the county commissioner.
Right.
Doing a great job. as executive director.
Correct. Okay. And Mr. Aaron, we do have one commissioner, of course, our assistant county manager, as well as a couple of other staff people that serve on that board. If you got any questions at all, Stacy could certainly help you
I'm aware of
understand it. Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here, and what I'm going to need, you have anything else you want to add?
Nope, I think that's it for us.
Okay, and what you're asking for is us to approve or deny your request?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At this time, then, y'all can be seated if you like.
Thank you.
Seems like we've got our questions answered. Any other comments from the board prior to taking a vote? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the request. Have a motion by one of my ladies, Ms. Wells. Okay, Ms. Wells. Is there a second? to that motion? Second by Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries, Ms. Cole, and thank you again for being here this morning. And Mr. Moody as well. Okay, we okay to keep moving, board members? Okay. Now we're on item number 8, which is a public hearing on the UDO text amendment, request number 2012-01 to add animal shelter government-owned as a separate permitted land use. I'll call on Mr. Tyson to make this presentation at this time. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. As the chairman said, the first planning item on your agenda this morning is a text amendment. As the board is aware, the county is potentially planning for the construction of a new animal shelter to replace the existing facility located off of First Street Extension currently inside the town of Nashville. The Unified Development Ordinance classifies an animal shelter under a broader category called Animal Specialty Services. That's permitted for development in the A1, the GI zoning districts with no specific restrictions. And it's also permitted in rural commercial and general commercial zoning districts, subject to one restriction, that there are no outdoor animal pens or runs permitted due to noise concerns. The purpose of the amendment we're about to look at is to consider establishing a government-owned animal shelter with outdoor animal pens and runs as its own separate unique land use instead of it being bundled in that larger animal specialty services category, and to permit it in the O&I, office and institutional zoning district, in addition to the A1 and GI districts where it would already be permitted, provided that there's a 200-foot separation between any outdoor pens and runs and any property that is residentially zoned or used. And that's, of course, to mitigate the potential noise. So if we look at the text amendment, is split among two slides that we have here. The first amendment is a change to the actual permitted use table. The category I mentioned that it would be classified under currently is shown here, Animal Specialty Services. It's permitted without restrictions in A1 and GI, and permitted in RC and GC, the two commercial zoning districts, with a prohibition against outdoor animal pens and runs. And then the new category, animal shelter government-owned, would be added in the educational and institutional land uses section, and it would be permitted in the A1, the OI, and the GI with that development standard, which we'll examine on the next slide. And of course, the development standard is pens and runs located outdoors shall be 200 feet or more from an adjacent residentially zoned or used property. The Technical Review Committee looked at this back on December the 3rd and recommended approval based on a determination that the request is reasonable in the public interest and not inconsistent with the land development plan. The planning board met to consider this request on December 21st. Mr. Donald Ray Griffin of 305 Shell Castle Road addressed the board in opposition to the request due to noise concerns. And with a split vote of 8-1, the planning board recommended first approval of consistency statement A, which you'll find in your packet, which finds the request to be reasonable in the public interest and not inconsistent with the recommendations of the land development plan, and also approval of the text amendment request itself. And so this is a two-motion process. First, we will need a consistency statement, and then that will be followed by a motion to actually approve or deny the text amendment. We'll need to hold a legislative public hearing on this request, and before we do that, I'll be glad to take any questions you have on the staff report.
Questions of Mr. Tyson by a board member?
Yes.
Mr. Belfield?
Mr. Tyson, are you all recommending just 200 feet from a residential area?
Yes. For a government-owned animal shelter, we're recommending a minimum separation distance, not necessarily applicable to the facility, but applicable to any outdoor pens and run areas where the animals would be released during normal daytime business hours.
So you're just saying 200 feet?
200 feet from the outdoor pen to an adjacent lot that is either residentially used, meaning it has a house on it somewhere, or residentially zoned for future residential development.
Other questions, Mr. Belfield?
No, I start to see it right off, but I see it later.
Okay.
I just think it ought to be more than 200 feet.
Okay, thank you, sir. Other questions, comments?
One. Would there be any concerns at the location about noise, dogs barking and things of that sort?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that the animals would not be allowed outside of a building in a typical animal shelter, except during normal business hours. So you're not looking at a noise overnight or anything like that. But there's an expectation that there will be some amount of noise associated with an animal facility.
Right.
Mr. Tyson, it may be well to point out again that it's government-owned, which in itself carries some additional
Right.
Restrictions and opportunities if a problem should occur.
So it is specified to be a government-owned animal shelter because any privately owned animal shelter would have to follow the same rules that are already on the books for animal specialty services. The idea that it's government-owned means that, you know, it's not a private or an individual that's doing this. It would be either the county or a local municipal government that is making the site design decisions for this particular land use.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Tyson. At this time, I'd like to call for a motion to go into public hearing on this matter.
Move we go into public hearing.
Have a motion by Commissioner Belfield. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a public hearing to consider this request for a UDO text amendment. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to speak for or against this request, we'd be glad to hear from you. One at a time, doesn't matter which order. We just ask that you state your name and address when you come to the podium, and it would be the time for you to come forward if you have any comments. Give us just a second, Mr. Griffin, and you can go ahead and start approaching if you'd like. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Good morning, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to take this opportunity to also thank Commissioner Outlaw for meeting with a few of us Shell Castle residents to address our concerns for the proposed new animal shelter to be built on the east side of our community.
Mr. Griffin, if you would just state your name and address so it'll be on the record, I'd appreciate it.
I'm sorry. I'm
Sorry to
Ray
interrupt.
Griffin. I live at 305 Shell Castle Road.
Okay.
During the Nash County Planning Board's meeting December 21st, it was approved to add animal shelters to the OI zones. Currently, the Nash County Unified Development Ordinance classifies an animal shelter under the broader land use category identified as animal specialty services, which is permitted for development in the A1, GI, RC, and GC zoning districts, subject to the restriction that no outdoor animal pens or runs are permitted due to noise concerns. The purpose of text amendment request A201201 was to consider establishing a government-owned animal shelter with outdoor animal pens and runs as a separate unique land use that would be permitted in the OI zoning district, in addition to the A1 and GI zoning districts, where it's already permitted, provided that the associated outdoor animal pens and runs would be located at least 200 feet or more from an adjacent residentially owned or used property in order to mitigate the potential noise. A number of Shell Castle residents request denial of the text amendment request A201201 as it is not reasonable with the recommendations of the Nash County Land Development Plan for the following reasons. In addition, I have a petition I would like to submit after I finish telling you. All of the residents were not able to come and sign a petition simply because we have a lot of residents that are up in age and that haven't even left their homes during the pandemic, and they're having the groceries delivered to them, so they're staying inside their homes. It has been documented that noise levels in animal shelters regularly exceed 100 decibels. To put this in context, a motorcycle emits noise at 95 decibels and a chainsaw at 110 decibels. A daytime noise level of 65 decibels is generally considered the maximum acceptable residential areas with no more than 55 decibels at night. Noise declines an average of 6 decibels for every doubling of distance. If the noise level is 100 decibels at a distance of 50 feet from the outside dog run, then the level from the outside dog run would be 81 decibels at the outside of a home 400 feet away, and 74 decibels at 1,000 feet. As you can see, 74 decibels is well above the maximum acceptable residential daytime noise level of 65 decibels and nighttime noise level of 55 decibels. Our neighborhood is well within the 1,000 feet parameter to hear this excessive amount of noise. If barking is continuous and loud enough to be disturbing, as it would be in our case, then it will affect the amount of prospective home buyer is willing to pay for homes in our subdivisions. There is a large body of research showing that excessive noise reduces property value. Currently, the total property value for a Shell Castle neighborhood is right at $8.2 million, with the tax value of homes ranging from $200,000 to $433,000. The average property tax paid for each home is over $2,200 annually, with additional taxes paid to Nash County for the many late model and new vehicles the property owners own. After speaking with many residents of Shell Castle, we would like the commissioners to take into consideration the value of our properties and the revenue we contribute to the county in making this decision. It's my understanding Nash County would like the proposed animal shelter to be close to the Nash Community College for the veterinarian technician program to have access to the additional training for additional training purposes. A few of the job responsibilities of a veterinarian tech includes assisting veterinarians during operations, supports animal examinations by assembling required supplies and instruments, repairing surgery table instruments, and the like. There are many other responsibilities that include feeding, walking, maintaining supplies, and record keeping for animals, to name a few. Since the students would have to drive off campus to access the proposed animal shelter, I believe it would be more beneficial for the college to set up something similar to a residency program for their students with the 2 veterinary hospitals closest to the college, including Nash County Animal Hospital and Coates Veterinary Hospital. This would give them experience with doctors that can teach them from experience and hands-on training they need in addition to textbook and class training. The college is currently in a landlocked position with the property that is proposed to build an animal shelter and one other property left next to that. I believe it would be prudent for Nash County to let the college utilize every available acre attached to the existing property for expansion, due to additional expansion after that would be by satellite only. On behalf of Shell Castle residents, I would like for the board to recommend denial of the text amendment request A-201-201 to add animal shelter as a land use and look at purchasing land across from the college that would not be within 100 or 2,000, 1,000 or 2,000 feet from a residential area. The land for sale is directly across 64 from College and intersects with Old Carriage Road. In addition to building an animal shelter on this property, the county could benefit from additional tax revenue by utilizing it to draw additional business recruitment for capital investment and economic development to the areas, as it is in a prime location next to 64 and close to 95. In addition, there are other properties directly across from the college that could possibly be acquired for building an animal shelter. At this time, I have a copy of the petition I'd like to submit.
Okay. If you would just lay it right on the corner of that table, it will get to the clerk. Mr. Griffin, thank you.
Thank you.
Kathleen. Is there someone else that wishes to speak on this item, either for or against? Ms. Evans, we'll get to you in just a second. Good to see you this morning. Hadn't seen you in quite a while.
How am I doing?
You state your name and address for the record, ma'am.
Betty Edmondson, 485 Shell Castle Road, Rocky Mount. I received the letter from the planning board. I thought the map and all was very good. I didn't think anything was being voted on except the O&I. Through the grapevine, I heard there would be property purchase for the community college. I have no problems with the community college. I did not attend the meeting because I didn't think that it would be anything against my Shell Castle neighborhood. My neighbor, Ray, called and asked if I was planning to attend, and I said, no, I don't go out much at night, and didn't think it would be a problem. He attended the meeting and came back and called me and was concerned that they had added to it the animal shelter. And I asked him at the time, did he know Wayne Outlaw, our commissioner, because I did not think that Wayne, having worked so hard with us with annexation, would be in favor of anything that would be against Shell Castle neighborhood. He did not know Wayne, so I immediately called Wayne and shared with him the concerns that Ray, our neighbor, had. And so Wayne said he did not attend that meeting, but he would get back with us. He was very kind to meet with us for over an hour, explained that this would be a very expensive building, and that he did not see anything that would be against Shell Castle. While we were meeting in my neighborhood, I'm the secretary treasurer and get all the complaints. So several of my neighbors called concerned after they received the letter that Ray had put out in our neighborhood talking about the shelter. And my husband got the calls and assured them we were meeting with Wayne and I would call back. Well, after meeting with Wayne and hearing what it would be with the shelter, the run would be on the opposite side, so the building would kind of be a buffer from our neighborhood. And I want to say, I think the map that was presented to us was very helpful also. I talked with several neighbors after that. They had no problem after I explained to them what Wayne had said to us. The petition that you will receive today was a letter that our neighbor put out prior to our meeting. And so I don't really think that the neighbors that signed it were really aware of what was shared with us with Wayne. So I personally, and the neighbors that I talked with, they do not have any problem with it. The only thing I did learn from this was that if you get a letter in the future, maybe you better check into it a little bit closer. But I have no problems, and I think the majority of neighbors in my neighborhood that have talked to me have no problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evanson. Is there someone else that wishes to speak on this item, either for or against? Okay, ma'am, if you would start moving forward, we'll be ready for you just a moment. While we're doing this, I do want to explain, since there was a little bit of confusion, I do understand that, but I want to assure you that Nash County doesn't do anything to try to confuse our residents, because this is a text amendment that is countywide and is not specific to one given location or one given potential shelter. It was put out there as just a text amendment. And then you had the rezoning after that, which is the rezoning itself, which we'll take up next, is to O&I. And it was just a rezoning matter is what that was. But it wasn't any intent to mislead anyone whatsoever. But I am glad that it was picked up, that you understood the two did connect, so we could air this out and everybody would feel better about it when we get through. I do also say that many times this board has a different of opinion as we are elected to do. When we all start thinking alike, some of us probably not doing our job, or you maybe not need but one of us. But I do hope when we get work through this, and what the outcome is, neighbors will remain neighbors and friends and so forth, because it's just very important to keep in mind that it's very possible to agree to disagree and to keep moving forward. Thank you, ma'am. Come forward. If you would state your name and address for the record.
Good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Trina Bellamy, and my address is 478 Shell Castle Road. My husband and I were finally able to purchase our very first home in Shell Castle a couple years ago. We purchased the home on the standing that you know, it's a nice, quiet neighborhood, a lot of elderly people there, so we wouldn't have to worry about a lot of noise and so forth. I missed the meetings before this in reference to the shelter. I have nothing against the shelter. However, I am concerned, and I do not agree with placing a shelter there because of the 200 feet distance that I heard previously about. I am concerned about the noise level also. And I'm especially concerned about my property value. And I would just like to have a little more insight and a little more definition on the gentleman that spoke earlier about the government-owned versus the private-owned shelters. I would like to have a little more insight on that. I would like to know what incentives it is to have a government-owned versus a private-owned. But you want to state and let it be known that my husband and I are against the shelter for the Shell Castle residents.
Would you repeat your address, please?
478 Shell Castle Road.
478.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see, well, I do see it. So you're on the opposite side of Shell Castle
Yes.
from the college. Okay, I see it now. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here this morning. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak for or against this item? Mr. Tyson, do you want to say a little bit more about the government-owned? Prefer I do it? I prefer you do it, because you do this every day. Okay, thank you.
I think the advantage to having it classified as a government-owned animal shelter is simply that the group that would make the decision ultimately about the site design and the site selection would be one that is accountable to the public. It would be an elected group of legislators, whether that's the county commissioners or a local town council. It would not be a private business or a private entity. And so it adds some additional accountability because the people behind the decision-making for the development of the facility would be accountable to the public as elected officials.
Okay. Thank you, sir. While Mr. Tyson's up, if no one else wishes to speak, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Combs. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion to close the public hearing, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Public hearing is now closed, and any commissioner have any other questions or comments for Mr. Tyson or anything else for that matter prior to going into a vote on this?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Outlaw, I was going to ask you if you would, I know you spent quite a bit of time on this.
Yes, sir.
Do you have some things you'd like to say to clarify it any more for the board?
Yes, sir, I would. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
First, I want to thank Ray for being here today. I want to thank Betty for being here. And I haven't met Ms. Bellamy, but I want to thank you for being here. I wish you could have been in the meeting that we had on the 28th of December. The planning board met on the 21st. Mr. Griffin attended that meeting. As Betty indicated in her comments, she contacted me after having a discussion with Mr. Griffin, and she just wanted some clarification. And I asked her, I said, would you be willing to meet with me to go through the details, the facts of this matter? She said, absolutely. I have a long history with Ms. Edmondson, the Shell Castle area, and the Oak Level community in general. I have high regard for the people, and as I indicated when I met with those folks, and Mr. Leonard, Plummer Leonard, was in that meeting as well, that it would never be my intent to do anything that would be detrimental to the community, not to Nash County, and specifically not to my community. So we had a good meeting. I came away from the meeting with the impression that maybe Mr. Griffin had not really understood exactly what was laid out in the planning board meeting. That was from the first question I asked, what are your issues with this matter? And Mr. Griffin indicated that he had a problem with an animal facility, and I like to refer to it as a facility, not a shelter. I think shelter has a bad connotation associated with it, and this would certainly not be something that I think would be bad. But I got the impression from Mr. Griffin that 200 feet from the residential line was what he walked away from the meeting with. And I expressed in the conversation that we had that this facility itself would be close to 900 feet from the Shell Castle property line. If you're familiar with Shell Castle, it's one road, you've got homes on the right, you've got homes on the left, and then there's a cul-de-sac at the end. So from the homes on the right, the facility, the dog run area, would be approximately 900 feet from the Shell Castle property line. In that 900 feet, there are 562 feet of trees, stand of trees, 562 feet. Now, after we had the meeting, I did express that I would work to try to move it a little further to the right, and that seemed to be acceptable to the group, which could potentially put it 1,000 feet. I'm not committing to a number, I'm just saying I'll work to move it to the right. So you got a facility that right now is about 900 feet from the property line. The facility, the dog run area, which is to the right of the building, which would serve as a buffer for the dog run area. And then you've got a stand of trees, 562 feet. In the meeting, after going through that and a lot of other discussion, we talked about other matters, DOT and the widening of the road and so forth, and I did some things on that after the meeting for Mr. Griffin. But one of the other attendees in the meeting asked Mr. Griffin, said, do you plan to share this information with the residents and possibly pull back that petition? I don't have a problem with the petition. I don't have a problem with people being opposed to this. Certainly, I'm not perfect, and every decision I make is not the final say. But I guess what concerned me about the petition is the petition went out. And do you have that petition, that letter with you today, Mr. Griffin, that you sent out to the residents? I just wonder if you do. Okay. Do you mind if I read some excerpts from that letter? Sir, I've got it if you don't mind. I've got the letter if you don't mind. I just want to share with you what was told to the residents in the area. And there are 30 homes in that area, by the way, so. This is how the letter started off. Dear Shell Castle residents, are you prepared for your property resale value to plummet indefinitely while you continue paying the same amount of property tax with future tax increases? I would just make a statement here that in the 12 years I've been on this board, there has not been a tax increase. And I'm not going to read the whole letter, but I want to read some excerpts from the letter, which I think, and this is not a criticism of Mr. Griffin, this is just simply apparently what he walked away from the planning board thinking. And I wish we could, again, we could have had our meeting and our discussion, and then information could have been sent out that was more accurate. And then if people like Ms. Bellamy were opposed to it, then that's fine. That doesn't bother me at all. Next paragraph says, Nash County intends to purchase 23.7 acres adjacent to our subdivision. Now, I made it very clear the purpose for purchasing that land. That land was to be purchased for future expansion of the community college, with a section of that land carved out to accommodate an animal services facility, which would work as appropriate in collaboration with the vet tech program on campus to enhance both programs. There's been no formal agreement drawn, no discussion on what that would entail. I'm very confident that it would not entail vet tech students driving to the facility from the campus. I can assure you of that. So Nash County intends to purchase 23.7 acres adjacent, it's not adjacent, to our subdivision to build an animal shelter that will potentially be the largest animal shelter on the East Coast. On the East Coast, the largest animal shelter on the East Coast, and would have the potential to house hundreds of dogs and other animals. Let me elaborate on that just a little bit more on the next page. With 23.7 acres, which is implying that this whole tract of land is being purchased for an animal shelter. With 23.7 acres and incorporating Nash Community College Vet Assistance Program, there is the potential to have the largest animal shelter on the East Coast, which is a restatement of what I just said on the first page. So it's saying here further, imagine 20 acres of this land for an animal shelter with 3.7 acres for parking. It also talks in here about noise level, decibels. I'm not a real, not real sharp at those things, but I did try to pick out of it what I thought made sense to me. It has been documented that noise levels in animal shelters, and we discussed this in the meeting, regularly exceed 100 decibels. Noise decibels on average, an average of 6 decibels for every doubling of the distance. So noise declines an average of 6 decibels for every doubling of the distance. So with the distance that we're talking about, and based on the letter that was sent out, it says that the noise level would be 74 decibels. And I asked Mr. Griffin in the meeting, I said, did you consider buffers? Here's what I got to say about buffers. I think it's common sense that the building and 562 feet of trees will provide buffering of the noise. If you go into the internet, you can find anything in the internet. Some of it's factual, some of it's probably not. This may not be factual, but this is what I found. Buffers can reduce noise, if this makes sense to you. A 100-foot wide planted buffer will reduce noise by 5 to 8 decibels. So we got 562 feet. We're 900 feet away with the potential of moving even further right. So back to the 100 animals. After the meeting, I got an email from Mr. Griffin, and he asked me this question. After having time to think about our conversation yesterday, being in construction the majority of my life and having had the opportunity to oversee work done on an animal shelter in Virginia, I have insight on all that is involved in the construction of the facility. With this knowledge, it seems that usage of 4 to 5 acres with a $1.3 million facility is more acreage and facility size for the maximum, that's key word, maximum capacity of 16 dogs and of course a number of cats. Could you please confirm with Bill Hill again the number of bays that will be built to house dogs in the new facility? I responded to Mr. Griffin on Thursday. I said, Ray, if you will recall, I stated in our meeting Monday, December the 28th, that the current animal facility housed, on average, 16 dogs, or 12 to 20 normally, not a maximum of 16 dogs. Additionally, the $1.3 million price tag is just an estimate at this point. Total cost for the facility will be determined when plans are finalized. This will be after and assuming the UDO text amendment and zoning request are approved by the Nash County Board of Commissioners at our Monday, January 4th meeting. If approved, and as I further mentioned in the meeting, the facility will be constructed with adequate containment and recreation space to accommodate any short-term surges in the population for a reasonably brief period of time to allow for adoption proceedings versus euthanization. I'm sure we would agree that adoption, when possible, is a more humane outcome for the animals. I trust this adequately addresses your question. So I've confirmed, I spoke to Mr. Hill to just confirm that I wasn't putting out anything that was incorrect, inappropriate, and he agrees with me. And as I mentioned, and I think Betty would recall, and Ray would as well, that I briefly mentioned the fact that we would like to have a more adoption-friendly operation, and this would accommodate that. I mentioned the fact that the animals would be outside from 9 to 5, and that if need be, we could accommodate some reduction in that. I indicated that they would not definitely be out at night, which in Mr. Griffin's letter to the resident, it does imply that they will be out at night. So I think there's been a lot of information put out there, and I'm sorry that it's got to this point, but I told Mr. Griffin in the meeting, I said I've dealt with what I think are some contentious issues sitting on this board for 12 years. I think certainly annexation was a very contentious issue. And I hate to even mention this, Mr. Chairman, but Sanderson Farms was a very contentious issue. There have been other matters that have been created quite a bit of tension, controversy, but I have never done anything in my 12 years but look at the facts, make my judgment based on what I believe the facts are. And I believe the facts are what I have just stated to you. We're going, if approved, to construct a facility that has nothing to do with Nash Community College other than the fact that it is carved out from a piece of land that the college is going to use for future expansion, and hopefully that would provide some enhancement to the vet tech as well as the shelter itself. I've given you the distance. The distance is about 900. In that distance, there's about 562 feet of trees. There's buffering by the building. No, if I were sitting here today voting probably to put a shelter within 200 feet of a property line. We're not talking about that. We're talking about at least 900 feet. Even though the UDO will say 200 at least, this is going to be right at 900 feet. And it could be a little bit more. So I did indicate to Mr. Griffin that I had looked at the facts, I've studied it. I think I know as much about this, or maybe more, than most people, and that it would be my intent today to be in support of this text amendment. I don't, I do what I think is right, and when the people tire of me doing what I think is right, I guess they'll say, go home, and that's what I'll do. But I'm gonna do what I think is the right thing, and I don't think this is a bad thing. I don't think it'll have any impact on the property values at Shell Castle. If I were living in Shell Castle, and I told Mr. Griffin and the other residents in the meeting, if I were living in Shell, I said, what do you see as the future for this corridor? From Sheets to Nashville. Me, I'm just one, but here's what I see as the future. I don't ever see another residential subdivision being constructed on that corridor. I see it being developed. I would be more concerned about the other side of Shell Castle if I lived there than the side with the community college coming my way. And in the meeting, I asked, does anybody feel like the community college takes away from their property values? And nobody did. So it would probably be a good thing if the community college could come on and get the other side as well, but I don't know that that would be the case. But, Mr. Chairman, I have done everything I know to do to try to explain the facts and the circumstances around this. And with that said, and short of any other comments, and there may be some, but once those comments are completed, then I would offer a motion for approval of consistency statement A.
Let me ask any commissioners, if any other comments from commissioners first.
Yeah.
Mr. Belfield?
Yeah, as I spoke to you, I believe it was Saturday, Saturday.
I think I called you on Saturday, yes, sir.
That I thought it ought to be more than 200 feet, and now we're talking about 9. That's more in line that I would be favorable in supporting it.
I do want to make sure we understand that, Mr. Belfield, what we're passing is the text amendment that would allow.
I understand the text
but that's not the case here.
But we're talking about with this construction of the vet.
Yes, sir.
Animal facility being at least 900 feet away from the residential.
Yes, sir. I got it. Yes, sir.
Because 200 is not enough.
All right, thank you, sir. Any other comments, Mr. Aaron?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Well, pardon my parliamentary procedure, but I felt like Mr. Outlaw's comment should have been done during the public hearing session. And I think that since he directed everything to Mr. Griffin, that Mr. Griffin ought to have the opportunity to respond.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ayrton. Of course, procedure of the board is that the commissioners do not speak during a public hearing, but have a chance to speak after the public hearing prior to a vote. And I understand your request. And the public hearing has been closed, and therefore the time for the public to speak is beyond where we're at in our meeting this morning. Any other comments from a commissioner this time?
Okay, well.
Mr. Griffin, I think it'd be.
I have no problem with that, sir.
Well, with Mr. Outlaw, it's not normal for me to do this because the public hearing is now gone, but I've had a request from one commissioner and another commissioner say that he didn't have an issue with it, and I'm here to lead the board, so we'll give you just a moment to say something, Mr. Griffin, if you like. If you would come back to the podium. Pause just a moment, if you would. Mr. Outlaw, this is not my normal procedure, but at your request, at Mr.
Well,
Arrington's
thank you for
request.
clarifying when it's appropriate for the commissioners to speak.
Yes,
And I-
sir.
And I think, based on what I've said, if Mr. Griffin's got something he wishes to clarify, then I have no problem with that.
Okay,
I have no problem with it.
right.
Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we're here to have an open discussion to a certain degree, I hope.
Well,
Chairman,
it's-
don't
it's
you
a
think you
dangerous
should take a
precedent.
vote and second and reopen the public hearing if you're going to allow him to speak in it?
Excuse me, Mr. Durham, would you state that again?
I would suggest that you reopen the public hearing if you're going to allow him to speak again.
Are you suggesting that, or are you telling me that, sir?
Yeah, I'm just suggesting, you are in control of the meeting itself.
Okay.
He is going to be part of the public hearing if he's speaking.
It would be public,
I would recommend it,
okay, he'd be part of the public comment.
yes.
Come on, Mr. Griffin. Thank you, Mr. Durham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to briefly say that in response to Mr. Outlaw's comments about my letter, when I wrote that letter to the residents of Shell Castle, I wrote that letter after leaving a meeting here on the 21st with the planning board. At that time, I was under the impression that the entire 23.7 acres were going to be used for animal shelter. With that in mind, that's why I wrote the letter the way I did. In addition to that, the animal shelter I spoke of in the letter or I spoke of in his email that I was, had a part in Virginia was only on 2 acres versus 4 or 5 acres, which is what was discussed in the meeting. And they had 24 dog runs in that small facility. And so I'd just like to point out that some of the things that's been said about my letter, was put in a different context for the, used to go with the approval of this animal shelter to be built on the property. And also, we really need to consider every acre that's left that the college can use to let them keep it, because otherwise, after this, there's no more acreage for them to use. Everything will be satellite. No college or university wants to be satellite. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment, please?
As long as we're not going back and forth.
No, we're
Mr.
not.
Outlaw,
No,
okay.
no, we're not. We're not
Thank
going back and forth.
Yes, sir.
Just 2 points. There probably is more property available to the community college, contiguous to the college. But in the meeting that we had, I believe, it may have been Miss Edmondson, I believe it was, she asked Mr. Griffin, do you intend, now this is on the 28th, this is last Monday, do you intend to go back to the residents and clarify this information that you received from the planning board?
Mr. Outlaw, we're borderline going back
Okay.
and forth. I'll allow you to.
I just have that as my final comment. I think Mr. Griffin had a week to clarify this information, and I wish he'd have done that, and we probably wouldn't be where we are today. But thank you much.
Yes, sir. This is why I didn't want to go here. Ms. Edmondson, I think we're good where we are. I really need to not open a public hearing back out.
It doesn't have, I was just gonna say that I get more noise from 64 Highway than I would from that.
Okay. Ma'am. Any other commissioner have a comment?
I've got a comment.
Ms. Leggett?
I just want to make sure that we're clear on this matter of the buffer. We don't own the woods
We do not.
between there, and there's no guarantee that those woods are going to stay there.
That is correct. Yep. Great observation. Mr. Arrington?
And my comment is that we approved this, that we try to ensure that a buffer, some type of buffer, is maintained between the residents and that property, even if those trees get sold and cut, or even if the noise with the trees happen to be louder than we expected, that we would kind of monitor that to try to keep a buffer.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. Mr. Outlaw, if you want to make a motion, I think we're all through with our comments. I'd entertain that motion at this time.
Yes, sir. I move for adoption of consistency statement A for approval.
That includes those items under consistency statement A.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wells. Is there any questions from a commissioner on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? That motion carries. I have been asked, Mr. Tyson, for a 10-minute recess at this time.
That was a consistency statement, but we need to.
You're right. I'm sorry. I need to finish up the rest of it. I thought I was on to the other one. Y'all have rattled the chairman just a little bit this morning. We're going to be okay. All right, now we're need a motion to approve or deny the text amendment.
Move for approval of the text amendment.
I have a motion to approve the text amendment and a second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries as well. I will, at this time, call for a 10-minute recess. Call us back to order at this time, please. Mr. Tyson, if you want to go ahead with agenda item number 9, please.
Item 9 is related to item 8 in the sense that we are still talking about the O&I, Office and Institutional Zoning District. This is a general rezoning request. The subject property is outlined in red on the maps on the screen. You have an aerial photo on the left-hand side and then a zoning map on the right-hand side. It's a 23.7 acre tract owned by Grover E. Edwards and Dawn W. Edwards, located at 3656 Eastern Avenue. Of course, the town of Nashville is off to the left or the west side of the map, and then the city of Rocky Mount would be to the east or the right-hand side of the map. You can see from the colors on the zoning map that it is currently split between 2 zoning districts, R20 medium density residential toward the front near Eastern Avenue, and then the darker green color that covers the majority and the rear of the property is R30 single and 2-family residential. It's further identified as Tract 2 of the Lily Edwards Dozier Ayers property. Was surveyed out and recorded back in October of '81. And of course, this is the tract right here toward the bottom of the screen. It's located between the Shell Castle subdivision, which is over toward the left-hand side of the map in both cases, which was developed in August 1998, and of course the Nash Community College campus, which is immediately adjacent to the east and inside this existing light blue O&I Office and Institutional Zoning District. Subject property is currently used primarily as agricultural cropland, but the front portion does include 1 single-family dwelling and some various accessory structures. Site's in the Tar-Pamlico River Basin. It's not located within a floodplain or a watershed protection overlay district, but there is a potential stream, a riparian buffered stream that defines the rear property line, and of course that buffer would fall inside what is already the wooded area that's not farmed. City of Rocky Mount public water is potentially available to the subject property along the Eastern Avenue right-of-way, but of course, because it's located outside the city's municipal limits, it would be subject to service conditions. Nash County recently secured an option to purchase the subject property for the future development of county facilities and/or the future expansion of the adjacent Nash Community College campus. For that reason, the county has initiated this general rezoning request to rezone the property to the O&I zoning district, which is already shown in blue over the community college campus. The OI, Office and Institutional Zoning District, is, quote, primarily intended to accommodate office, public, and institutional land uses, business, professional, and personal services, limited support retail, and high-density residential uses. The county has 3 existing general OI zoning districts. this one for the Nash Community College, one for the Nash Correctional Institution, and one for the Middlesex Free Will Baptist Children's Home. Next in your packet, you have an excerpt from the table of permitted uses, which is found in the Unified Development Ordinance, listing the full range of land uses that are permitted in the current 2 zoning districts, which is R20 and R30. That's in these 2 columns here. And then the 3rd column, all the way on the right-hand side of each page, is what's permitted in the O&I Office Institutional Zoning District, which the request is to rezone the property to. Not noted here, but obviously relevant, is an animal shelter that is government-owned, which the ordinance was just amended to permit for development in this O&I zone, subject to that 200-foot minimum separation distance that would apply to outdoor pens and runs. And so all of the uses that are shown as having a letter in the far right-hand category would be potentially developable on the subject property, and then in addition to the ones listed, the animal shelter government-owned. Every use that is highlighted in yellow is a use that is not permitted in the current residential zones that would potentially be permitted in the new O&I zoning district. When we consider rezoning, we always use 2 tools: the consistency with our land development plan and also an analysis of spot zoning. This request is consistent with the recommendations of the land development plan because, number 1, the subject property is designated as suburban growth area, as you can see with that light yellowish color that covers the majority of this area, with the exception of the Rocky Mount extraterritorial jurisdiction, which is shaded in gray, because obviously that is not in our land development plan. That would be under the city's jurisdiction. The land development plan supports the establishment of non-residential land uses in this suburban growth area, provided that they meet the following locational criteria. Number 1, frontage and access to a major state highway or secondary road. Number 2, location at a major intersection. Number 3, proximity to similar uses. And number 4, spatial separation from non-compatible uses such as existing residential development. To answer all 4 of those criteria, the property has frontage along and direct access to Eastern Avenue, which is a state-maintained secondary public road with an estimated annual average daily traffic of about 9,000 vehicle trips per day. The subject property is located in close proximity to the commercially developed major intersection of Eastern Avenue, Old Carriage Road, and Sunset Avenue. The subject property is immediately adjacent to the Nash Community College campus, which is an already existing non-residential land use. And the subject property is spatially separated from most of the nearby residential development, with the exception of the one existing single-family dwelling that is on the front of the adjacent property at 3538 Eastern Avenue, which is currently separated from the site by a wooded buffer, which you can see here. The spot zoning analysis reveals that this is obviously not considered spot zoning because it would be an expansion of the previously established and already existing O&I office and institutional district that covers the community college campus. So it would be stretching that district to include the area inside the confines of the red property line. The Technical Review Committee considered this request on December 3rd and recommended approval based on its determination that it's reasonable in the public interest, consistent with the land use plan and not spot zoning. The Planning Board considered this on December 21st. Mr. Donald Ray Griffin of 305 Shell Castle Road addressed the board in opposition to the request due to concerns related to potential noise and to the potential impact on surrounding property values. The Planning Board, with a split vote of 8-1, voted to recommend approval of consistency statement A, which is listed in your packet, finding the request to be reasonable in the public interest, consistent with the land use plan and not spot zoning. And also the board voted 8-1 to recommend approval of the rezoning request itself. This will be a 2-motion process with a consistency statement preceding the motion to actually approve or deny the zoning map amendment. The owner of the immediately adjacent property to the west, which has the nearest single-family dwelling, and the wooded buffer that's been referred to several times. Dr. Kumar was present with us at the beginning of the meeting. He had to leave in order to make a doctor's appointment, but he asked me to specifically convey to the board his support for the rezoning as the immediately adjacent landowner. And with that, I will take any questions that the board has on the staff report before we proceed to the public hearing.
Any questions from a commissioner on the staff report? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Tyson. I entertain a motion to go into public hearing on this rezoning matter.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Combs, second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? That motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in another public hearing. This is concerning the same tract of land, the 23.7 acres, or I say the same tract of land, but it is a rezoning matter, not a text amendment, and it is adjacent to Nash Community College. We are looking at rezoning it to O&I, which is what the college is currently rezoned. If there's anyone in the public wish to speak on this matter at this time, either for or against, you would raise your hand. Seeing no one, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Leggett. Second that motion. Second, Mr. Combs. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Public hearing is now closed. Any discussion from the board or any other questions or comments? Seeing none, it is a two-part motion. We will need a motion to adopt either consistency statement A with the items listed below or consistency statement B. I'd entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Chairman, move for adoption of consistency statement A for approval.
Have a motion for consistency statement A with the items listed below it. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? That motion carries. The second part of the motion is to approve or deny the zoning map amendment to O&I. I entertain a motion at this time to approve or deny.
Mr. Chairman, move for approval.
Have a motion to approve the rezoning to O&I. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Belfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries as well, and the property is properly rezoned. Mr. Tyson, while you're up, we'll move on to item number 10.
This is the third and final planning item on your agenda this morning, and at least in my mind, is much more of a technicality than what we've just handled. This is a general rezoning request. The property is 2 lots totaling 1.93 acres, currently owned by Four Seasons Contractors, LLC. It's circled in red on the subject maps on the screen. You have your aerial photo on the left and your zoning map on the right. It is located at 2180 and 2194 Northern Nash Road. This is on the southeast side of the town of Red Oak. And if you'll note on the zoning map, everything in gray is inside the municipal limits of the town of Red Oak. So we're right up next to their borders. And it is directly across the road from Northern Nash High School. And so you can see the football stadium right there. The property is identified as Lot 7 and 8 of the Richwood Subdivision Phase 2, which was recorded back in November of 1991. It is north of and immediately adjacent to the municipal limits of the town of Red Oak. So it is these 2 southernmost lots of the Richwood Subdivision right there. Property is currently undeveloped, but that won't last for long because the Four Seasons Contractors, the owners, have applied for building permits to place new single-family dwellings on each of those lots. Those single-family dwellings will be served by Nash County Public Water and individual private on-site septic systems. The two subject lots were annexed into the town of Red Oak within its municipal limits in April of 1996. And as the board is probably aware, the only way to de-annex a property and remove it from the municipal limits is an act of the North Carolina General Assembly. And so there was a local de-annexation act passed by the General Assembly in February of 2009, that's what you have on your screen, which removed these two lots from Red Oak's municipal limits and returned them to Nash County's unincorporated jurisdiction. Evidently, at that time, Nash County took no formal action to zone the two lots. And so in consultation with the UNC School of Government, we've determined that these two lots actually constitute a hole in our zoning map. So they have no zoning classification at this time. Everything adjacent to it is either zoned by the town of Red Oak, which is indicated by the gray color, or is in the RA 30 zoning district that is in the orangish color. The RA 30 zoning district is primarily intended to accommodate low-density, single-family detached dwellings on large lots in areas without access to public water and sewer, and in areas where soil characteristics necessitate low-density development. So obviously, this request would be to rezone these two lots to the RA 30 zoning district that it is already immediately adjacent to. The land development plan does not include the subject property. There is also a hole in the land development plan map because these two lots were within the municipal limits of Red Oak at the time the plan was adopted in 2006. Therefore, this request also proposes that we amend the land use plan future development map to designate the subject property as suburban growth area. And so you can see all the county-controlled property is already designated as suburban growth area. This would be consistent with the plan's recommendations because the suburban growth area is defined as those areas of the county where significant residential growth is expected to occur and that are located primarily adjacent to municipal planning jurisdictions and where public water is available or planned in the near future. Residential growth is obviously imminent on the subject property with the pending construction of the two new homes by the property owner and developer. The subject property is immediately adjacent to the municipal planning jurisdiction of the town of Red Oak. Nash County Public Water is available along Northern Nash Road. And the immediately adjacent lots 5, 6, and 9 of the same Richwood subdivision located to the north and west are already designated as suburban growth area. Rezoning the subject property to the proposed RA 30 zoning district is explicitly consistent with the recommendations of the plan, because the plan recommends that residential rezonings within this area be limited to RA zoning districts only, which certainly this is, meaning that the development of manufactured homes should be prohibited unless there is both public water and sewer available. And number two, the plan recommends rezoning to this RA 30 zoning district where public water is available and Nash County Public Water is available along Northern Nash Road. This would obviously not be spot zoning because it would be an expansion of the previously established and already existing RA 30 zoning district, which surrounds these two lots on 3 sides. The Technical Review Committee considered this request on December 3rd and recommended approval. The Planning Board met on December 21st. There were no members of the public addressing the board at that time with regard to the request. And the Planning Board voted unanimously to recommend approval of Consistency Statement A, finding the request to be reasonable, in the public interest, consistent with the land use plan, and not spot zoning. And number 2, approval of the request itself. So again, this will be a consistency statement followed by a second motion. And the only wrinkle here is that the second motion is not only to amend the zoning map, but also to amend the future land development plan map, because there is a hole over these lots in both maps. And so we'll be amending 2 maps with one motion, with motion number 2. And I'll be glad to take any questions prior to the public hearing.
Any questions from board members at this time for Mr. Tyson? Thank you, Mr. Tyson. Excuse me.
Why? Excuse me. You might have said this, but what's the purpose of de-annexation and coming under the county?
Why were the 2 lots ever taken out of Red Oak?
No.
That was done many years ago, Mr. Land.
And now that was done in 96.
They were annexed by Red Oak in 96. They were de-annexed by the General Assembly in 2009.
Why would, there is no tax rate in Red Oak, so what is the
I
purpose?
have the same question.
Okay.
I don't think we know the answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Probably by a previous owner, I would think. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Tyson. Ladies and gentlemen, with board members, I entertain a motion to go into public hearing on this matter.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Leggett, there's second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in a public hearing, and if there's anyone here today that wishes to speak for or against this rezoning matter, we would be glad to hear from you this time. I think we're okay, Kathleen. I believe we're okay. Seeing no one, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
Move to close the public hearing.
Motion by Commissioner Belfield, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ayrton. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Public hearing is now closed. It is a two-part action that the board needs to take. The first action is to adopt a consistency statement with the items listed under it, and I'd entertain a motion at this time to adopt either consistency statement A or B.
Move for adoption of consistency statement A.
Have a motion to adopt consistency statement A with the items listed therein. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Have several seconds. Commissioner Arrington, Commissioner Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Consistency statement A is adopted. The second motion, as pointed out by Mr. Tyson, is a motion to approve or deny the change of the future land development map and also the zoning map. Entertain a motion for approval or deny at this time for both maps.
I move approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Combs, second by Commissioner Belfield, I think. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Both maps stand changed at this time, Mr. Tyson.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll now go into item number 11, which is our employee service awards. I call on Mr. Kirkland at this time to make the presentation. You can go ahead, Kathleen, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, as I've said many times, I always felt like the presentation we give these employees is a very, very small token of their many long years of service to Nash County. This time, I feel that the board is also feel even less worthy of what we're doing this morning because due to the number of them, which is a great thing, we do not have them present today. We are going to make the presentations, but I would just say that I feel very unworthy of what we're doing here this morning, but I think we don't have any choice, quite frankly. Kirkland, if you'll come forward, you've got a long list of great employees here that have been with us a long time, and I hope some of them are watching.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
In light of COVID, there was a decision made this year to distribute the service pins and certificates at the department level, but we did think it was appropriate to read their names to acknowledge them this morning. And I would like to, after I've completed reading all the names, to give them a round of applause and recognition for their service.
I promise you we would do that if we don't do it before you finish.
Okay, and you can do it anytime, be perfectly fine. For 20 years of service, Gregory Adams with the Sheriff's Department, Van Batchelor, Tax Department, Nikki Blanton, Health Department, Virginia Carpenter, EMS, Scott Farmer, Public Utilities, Greg Finch, Sheriff's Department, Marvella Gay, Detention Center, Sonia Green Ward, Social Services, Ryan Hartman, Sheriff's Department, Cindy Lewis, Social Services, Valerie Lynch, Detention Center, Kathy Ordess, Tax Department, Stacy Schatzer, County Manager's Office, Charlissa Spate, Social Services, Sandy Vick, MIS, and Sherry Winstead, Social Services. For 25 years of service, Brian Dixon, EMS, Cheryl Hagan, Health Department, Claudia Hedgepeth, Health Department, Beverly Lowe, Social Services, Christy Lynch, Social Services, William Murphy, Sheriff's Department, Melissa Parrish, Social Services, Lisa Strickland, Health Department, Sharon Suit, Social Services, Doris Sumner, Tax Department, Andrea Wilson, Social Services, and Allison Winstead with the Sheriff's Department. We have one employee who had 30 years of service, and she has just recently retired, Dina Lancaster with Social Services. One employee with 35 years of service, and that's Brian Brantley with EMS. And finally, certainly not least, one employee with 45 years of service, and she just retired December 31st, Sarah Hill from Social Services. So let's give them all a hand for their service to the county.
Thank you, Anson. If you didn't total them up, that's a total of 745 years of service by those group of employees, if my quick math is correct. It is, I think we did have Ms. Hill at our meeting last month and recognized her. But it is a testament, I think, to have this many employees served a long time that they do, that Nash County apparently is a pretty good place to work. This board does try to look out for their employees as much as we can with the guidance of the staff. And on behalf of all those employees, we greatly appreciate it. A couple of them have retired already, and I'm sure you'll greatly be missed. But anything that the board can do, if you will forward it up the chain and bring it to us, we'll try our best to do whatever the employees need done. Thank you again for everyone. Have any other commissioner like to say anything at this time? All right, thank y'all. Let's see, that is item number 11. Next item is item number 12, which apparently is another retirement, and I have Brandon Medina on my list to make the presentation. Are you going to make it, Major?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How's everyone?
Everybody is doing fairly well, I think. I hope you are.
Yes, sir.
Looks like we had a reasonably quiet holiday period, not too bad, according to your reports.
Yes, sir. I'd like to keep it that way.
Amen.
As you stated, we're here to, as customary, to request a service weapon for a retirement for Captain Jeremy Worrell, as we've done before. If you'll bear with me, let me just give you a little background on Captain Worrell. Jeremy Worrell retired from the Sheriff's Office on December 31st of 2020 with a total of 30 years, 9 months of honorable service in law enforcement. Excuse me. In July of '91, Jeremy Worrell began his career as a security officer with Nash General Hospital. In January of '92, Jeremy Worrell enrolled in the 41st Basic Law Enforcement Training Academy at Coastal Plains Law Enforcement Academy in Wilson. Jeremy Worrell successfully completed BLET Academy in May of '92 and resumed his employment with Nash General Hospital through July of '94. In July of 1994, Worrell was hired by then Sheriff Frank Brown as a patrol deputy with the Nash County Sheriff's Office. In July of '97, Worrell was promoted from deputy to corporal within the patrol division by Sheriff Jimmy Grimes. In July of '99, Worrell was reassigned to the Criminal Investigative Division as the juvenile investigator. In September 2002, Worrell was selected to attend the Virginia School of Polygraph and graduated in November of 2002. Upon his return, Worrell was assigned as a general investigator and polygraph examiner for the Sheriff's Office. In August of 2003, Sheriff Grimes promoted Worrell
to the rank of sergeant in the Criminal Investigation Division, where he remained in the assignment until March of 2015. In March of 2015, Sheriff Keith Stone reassigned Worrells as sergeant over the Civil Division. And in July of 2015, a rank structure reclassification took place in the agency, and Worrells' title was updated to Lieutenant of the Civil Division. In July of 2019, Sheriff Keith Stone promoted Worrell to the rank of captain over the Civil Division, where he's been until his retirement. Captain Worrell earned his North Carolina Sheriff's Education and Training Standards Intermediate and Advanced Law Enforcement Certificate and his Intermediate and Advanced Service Awards. And just, I will say that, like I said, that Captain Worrell was hired by Sheriff Frank Brown. He's the last full-time employee that we had that was hired by Sheriff Brown.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Seems like a very distinguished, I happen to know Mr. Worrell pretty well.
Yes, sir. Hate to lose him, but when that time comes, the time comes.
Well, apparently so. Us people classified as workaholics don't understand why people retire, but there must be a reason somewhere out there.
He's one of a couple. We've got, I'll be back next month for another one that we've got retired at the end of this month, so.
I know you don't, just a thought, I know we generally don't see these employees when we award this service weapon. Would it be possible sometime have them, if they're not on shift or even they could take a break to bring with you?
Yes, sir. If that's something you guys would like to do,
show our
we can definitely make
appreciation
that
to them, if you could keep that in mind, and of course, if it is of the pleasure of the sheriff.
Yes, sir. I don't think that'll be a problem at all.
Okey-dokey. Any questions from the board members or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Move for approval.
Have a motion to approve by Commissioner Leggett. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Belfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion stand approved, and if you would certainly tell Mr. Ward, the board certainly appreciate his 30 years of service.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda would be item 13, Sandy Hall, if you'll be in the bullpen, doesn't sound right, maybe the on-deck circle. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
You've been patient this morning.
Yes. So today I'm here to present to you a farm lease bid for approval. It is the track on Highway 97 at 116.99 acres. Our office advertised the farm lease for bids. They were due on Friday, November 13th at 12, and our office received one bid from a Josh Barnes, a Pack House LLC. That's a pack house without a C. A bid of $100 per acre. Recommendation is the bid to be accepted, and then we will work with the clerk for the signatures. And the farm lease agreement is prepared by our county attorney, is on page 113 of your document.
It's for 2 years or 1 year? Two. That's what I think. Any questions of Ms. Hall?
I've got a correction. In our board packet, the bid sheet shows 2019 bid information or dates. That needs to be updated. It said bid record form, bid open at 12 noon, December 19th, 2019.
I think I noticed that at the time. It does need to be updated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess your comment about Pack House, you realize it was one way, one paragraph, one way the other.
Correct.
Okay, you got that. Sandy, do you know, if I remember right, first time we put this property out to lease, it brought significant more than this?
It's been higher, yes,
It's
that is
been
correct.
considerably-
I don't know what the exact
considerably
number,
higher.
but I
Yeah.
believe it's been considerably higher.
Yeah. do you know why it's down somewhat this time? Because you got one bid, I guess?
One bid probably, and that's the previous person that has had that acreage, the last one.
Okay, did you have any questions during the bidding process from other
I
potential bidders?
think we had one inquiry.
One inquiry, okay.
That was it.
Ms. Leggett, do you remember what it was originally at the very first
It was
time?
closer to $200 an acre, or $225.
They're out of business now.
I was thinking much higher than that. I thought it
It
was in
might
the
have been.
300s. They're out of business?
They're out of business now.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I believe it was like 216 or
Yeah, I was going to say
Was it
213.
213,
Yeah.
something like that.
I don't
Original.
I don't know why I remember it more than that, because I wished it was more than that, I guess, maybe. All right, I would entertain a motion for approval of this lease. Approval or denial, of course.
Move approval.
Commissioner Bellfield moves for approval. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Please stand approved. Thank you, Ms. Hall.
Thank you.
Thomas, you're on deck circle, which should mean something to you, sir, on item number 14. You've got to have the cleanest hands there are in Nash County. Thank you. Good morning, Thomas.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Morning.
I'm here today requesting that the board extend the interlocal agreement between the town of Nashville and Nash County for an additional 2 years, starting January 21st, 2021. The interlocal agreement between the town of Nashville and Nash County is set for operation of field athletic sports programs, park maintenance management, and the supervision of Glover Park is set to expire on this month, on January 21st, 2021. This agreement was brought up for discussion on December 1st, 2020 at the town of Nashville's council meeting. And after discussion, the town council recommended that the agreement get extended for additional 2 years, effective January 21st, 2021. I have included the updated interlocal agreement in your packet, and I'm willing to entertain any questions from the board.
Any questions from board members? Any changes between this and what we started with, Thomas?
No, sir.
I know you worked a long time to get it.
Yeah, just
first time.
2 years instead of 1 year for
Okay.
the renewal of the contract.
Any other questions? Thomas, I'd just like to say on behalf of the board, this was an item I thought when we started had a lot of potential for failure. It was the first time it had been done, and of course, it took quite a while to get an agreement that we all signed off on, but apparently you and your staff have done a wonderful job of making sure it worked. I've heard many positive comments about your leadership from the people in Nashville, and on behalf of the board, we just thank you for doing a great job you've apparently done with this particular interlocking agreement that had, as I said, many opportunities to not go well, but you and your staff have made it go well. With that said, I'd entertain a motion for approval or denial of the request.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Wells to approve. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett and Bellfield at the same time. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion stands approved, and thank you, sir, and relay the board's appreciation to the town of Nashville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say I appreciate the support from yourself and the board, as well as our county administration.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sandy, did I need to pause, or you okay over there? Well, when we add a member to the board up here, no, you can't hide.
No, I think we're good.
Okay, okay. Mr. Boone, you're up next, and stand ready, it looks like. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. Item we have before you this morning is an amendment to our contract with the Wooten Company for our project in the Northern Ash Water System. As you're aware, that project is under construction. We anticipate work continuing on that project at least through March of this year. That's about 7 months beyond where we'd initially anticipated being when the contract was originally awarded. That was a 150-day contract, but progress has been a little slower than we would like to have seen. But nonetheless, this contract amendment covers the additional construction administration and construction observation services to cover that construction period, and also includes additional design fees, contract administration fees, and construction observation fees for the water supply well to be constructed at the intersection of James Bond Road and Exum Road. So total contract amendment is $184,400. That said, I'll be glad to entertain any questions you may have.
Questions from board members? Mr. Boone, I've studied this thing quite a bit and have quite a bit of concern over it, as I'm sure you would expect me to. It appears like a large portion of this has been caused by the delay on the part of the contractor to complete the project on time. Some of it's not his fault by any means, but does the board expect to have any recovery of these funds due to the excess in time on the contract?
One vehicle that the county would have available to recoup some of this expense would be through the liquidated damages, if we elect to pursue that through the contract with EOJ. There are other potential vehicles available, should we elect to re-engage with the Wooten Company regarding some of the issues that have come up over the course of the contract. But the most immediate vehicle would be the imposition of liquidated damages.
Is this an item that you need approval on today, or would our next meeting in January be okay?
Yes, that would be fine.
I really have a lot of concern about it, and if it doesn't upset anything, of course, some of it is due, there's no question about that, but you brought it to us all as one lump sum order, and I think the board looks to me to scrutinize this pretty well. I know, Mr. Bellfield, sometimes you have concerns with these.
And I do about this too.
Okay. And you're sure, Mr. Boone, if we do this at our second meeting in January, that we'll be okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to get beyond the meeting that we've got scheduled with the owner of that construction firm and see where we stand there prior to moving forward with this.
Okay.
But I certainly don't want to upset you.
Another 2 weeks is not going to hurt us.
Okay, okay. I appreciate that. If it's pleasure to the board, I'd like to ask for a motion to table this to a time specific, then our second meeting in January.
So move.
Motion by Commissioner Bellfield. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Madam Clerk, if you will reschedule for that agenda for that meeting, I'd appreciate it. Anything else, Mr. Boone?
That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Donna, item 16, does it need action based on what we did for item 15? Part of it does, okay.
Sure.
Okay. If you want to go ahead and be moving this way. I think Ms. Regan didn't understand how long our meeting might last, or our batteries out. Is that the thought at hand?
I'm sorry, it's wet. That's okay. Just wanted to give it a little break.
Need to rethink buying that thing.
The amendment I have for the Northern Nash Water System, that can wait as well.
Excuse us just a minute. Let me see what we got here on this thing. What do we have, Mr. Lamb?
I was asking her if she needed to plug it in,
Oh,
but she doesn't. She doesn't.
okay. Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Wood. Thank you.
Okay, so the amendment for the Northern Nash Water System, if you'd like to hold off on that, because it does realign some of the numbers as well.
So is that the whole 16?
Yes, it's with the budget ordinance for Northern Nash Water System. It does add additional miscellaneous income for some water meters that we purchased, but it can wait if we want to do the contract and the budget amendment at the same time.
I'm looking for your guidance. Is it any part of 16 that we need to take care of today?
No, it can
Okay.
wait. It can wait.
All right, well, if that's the case, I'd entertain a motion to table item 16 until our next January meeting.
Okay.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw, second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Madam Clerk, if you'll schedule that for the same time. And that gets us to 17, which is Capital Project Ordinance Amendment, LCID.
Okay, this is an amendment for the LCID Capital Project Ordinance. The Board of Commissioners approved to move forward with the construction of a yard waste disposal site at the Nash County landfill in June 2019. The project was set up in 2 phases. The first phase included design and permitting to obtain proper approvals to move forward with the LCID area. Phase 1 has been completed. The second phase includes the construction and development of the LCID landfill. The construction required an informal bidding process, and after receiving 3 bids, the lowest responsive bid was awarded to Sawyer's Land Developing Incorporated. And the attached amendment realigns the Phase 2 budget line items based on the most recent project estimate. So there's no additional funds, it's just realigning the funds within Phase 2 of the project.
Any questions on this item for Ms. Wood? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw, is there a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Combs. Questions on this motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Item 17 stands approved. Move to item 18.
Okay, item number 18 is the COVID-19 grant project ordinance. This is Amendment 7. This was also anticipation of the CRF funding ending effective December 31st, 2020. It's our understanding the funds have been extended to 2021, but this is to realign our project funding for that. So this amendment, in addition to that, this amendment includes $12,518,000 for the Board of Elections, one-stop workers, and increases the funding available from the coronavirus relief funds established under the CARES Act by $1,107, recognizing the investment earnings on the funds as of December 31st. In addition, the amendment, as I indicated, reallocates the expenditure categories associated with CRF funding to more closely reflect the estimated county plan at this time.
All right, any questions on this item? Entertain a motion for approval of item number 18.
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Leggett, second by Commissioner Arrington. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion 18, item 18 stands approved. Move to item 19, which is budget amendments.
Okay. The following amendments are presented for the board's consideration for fiscal year 2021. The first item is with Cooperative Extension. This budget amendments to budget funding from the DeLeon Carter Foundation to support the Nash County Cooperative Extension Family and Consumer Science Program and Nash County Farmers Market. These funds will be used to purchase equipment and supplies for nutrition and physical fitness, education, and cultural enrichment programs offered to citizens in Nash County. It's $3,000. No county funds are required. The next item is with federal asset forfeiture funds. This budget amendments to budget fund balance appropriation from federal asset forfeiture funds to be used to purchase a state surplus vehicle, which would be a Dodge Charger, and equipment supplied to upfit that vehicle, increase the available funding for telephone subpoenas for criminal investigations, and to cover overtime pay for the narcotics team. It's a request of $30,306. No county funds are required. The next item is with the Senior Center HCCBG program. This budget amendments to realign available funding from the Area Agency on Aging due to the allocation of CARES Act funding for certain senior service operations. The Senior Center, certain senior center operations, the Senior Center, transportation and medical transportation, general fund budget expenditures are decreasing. The fund balance appropriation decreases due to the decrease in budget expenditures for transportation and medical transportation, which requires a 10% county match. It's an overall decrease of $27,872.
All right, that's 3 budget amendments. Any questions on those? Seeing none, entertain a motion for approval. Moved by Commissioner Wells. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Any questions on the motion? Uh-oh, was it Mr. Arrington?
I'll second.
You seconded it. Okay, excuse me. Thank you, Commissioner Combs. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Budget amendment stand approved.
Thank you.
Ms. Regan. Next item is board appointment.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The first one is for the TDA, and I have not heard any new news
I have
about that
not given
one.
you anything there.
Okay. And then the next one is for UNC Nash Healthcare Systems. We had the term expire for Dr. Martha Chestnut, December 31st, 2020. And we also need to address Mr. Marty Neely. His relocation out of state and his unexpired term need to be filled. And do we have information on that?
I'm not sure. Mr. Lamb, have we had an update from the hospital board on that?
I just made a call because I realized I had not heard from them, and Lee Isley, the president, would like to meet with you and I after he has met with his board.
Okay.
He wants to meet with you and I on that issue.
Okay, I think we will table it
Okay.
to February.
Okay. And then the last two are positions that former Commissioner Mrs. Lou Richardson filled for the board on the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council and the Community Caregiver Advisory Board. We need to appoint a commissioner to those.
I know I saw a memo when I asked how Ms. Richardson felt. Did she want to tell me what the answer to that question was?
She made the suggestion that the commissioner that filled her seat might be appointed to those boards.
Okay, I knew she had said something. Mr. Arrington, are you familiar with those two committees, and are you willing to serve in those? And what we have here is we have two committees that Ms. Richardson served on, and I think she could have continued to serving on one of them, I think.
And she probably will continue to sit on the Community Caregiver Advisory.
But still
Correct, and I do believe that we have still been one person short on the Community Caregiver Advisory Board, so I think that was her thought process, that would make Nash County's representation complete on that board if we were able to appoint a commissioner.
Okay.
The Juvenile Crime Prevention Council
Right.
and the Community Caregiver Advisory Board.
If it's the pleasure of the board, to honor Ms. Richardson's thought on that, Mr. Arrington has agreed to serve on both of those, as I understand it, on very short notice. So I'd entertain a motion to make that I entertain a motion to appoint Mr. Arrington to those two boards. All right, have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Sue and Mr. Outlaw at the same time. Mr. Arrington, did you have any questions? I don't want to be running over you here.
No, I just need contact information with the persons that are in the leadership position.
Yes, sir, we'll take care of that.
All right.
All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Arrington, for agreeing to serve.
Well, I'm also on the Juvenile Crime Prevention Board.
Right.
So it was two commissioners on there.
Right.
So we can work together.
All right.
Ms. Sumner, you would be up next, and you look like you are ready when she is finished up. Hold on just a minute. What's that? Oh, yep.
I'm enjoying this.
We are enjoying watching you do it, I guess, I would say.
Makes me feel like a cowboy.
Feel like, what's that? Makes you feel like what?
A cowboy.
A cowboy.
Got my weapon, keeping y'all safe
Okay.
while you uphold law and order.
Well, it certainly looks more professional than what we were doing, no reflection on our manager. Good morning,
Good morning.
or afternoon it is now. Appreciate your patience this morning, this afternoon.
Yes, sir.
First item is, of course, the monthly tax report.
Yes, sir. At this time, I'd like to present the monthly tax report. And as you know, this report is designed to keep the board current on activities in the tax collector's office. The report is for your information only and does not require approval. However, it is recommended that you accept the report so that it'll be noted in the minutes. And of course, if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Any commissioner have a question on the monthly tax report for Ms. Sumner? See none, we note it to be accepted by the board.
Thank you.
And if you want to move on to
Yes, sir.
tax refunds, which I understand, did you have any come up?
We did not have any for this month's consideration.
Okay, don't have any, so you're out very easy today.
Yes, but I do want to make one comment.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow, January the 5th, is the last day to pay property taxes before interest and penalty begins. So if
That
anybody,
comment made directly to me or to everyone here?
to everyone.
I will see you tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir. And we do have a Dropbox out back. We do have a Dropbox out back in case there are any people that might come in and may not want to come in the office, because we are only allowing a certain number in at a time.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And as we say every month, we greatly appreciate what you and your staff does for Nash County.
Thank you, sir.
It helps make everything else happen.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Ms. Belfield.
she's a former 4-H'er and 4-H trained them well.
4-H does train them well. I didn't know that was part of the curriculum.
Yeah, you got one sitting up here on the Board of Commissioners that went through 4-H. So it trains them well in leadership.
Well, when you look at the graduation rates of 4-H members, it is very evident that they do train them very well.
It teaches responsibility too.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your comment.
Personal responsibility.
Right. All right, that is item number 22. We'll move on to item number 23, which is commissioner comments. Any commissioner have a comment they'd like to make at this time?
Just got a couple of things, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Outlaw.
Just a reminder that our mid-month January meetings will be the hospital, board, and EMS will be the inside presenter. For May, that would be our next mid-month meeting. We will have the Nash County Public Schools as the outside presenter, Parks and Rec as the inside presenter. And I also wanted to mention for Commissioner Harrington's benefit, I do sit on the RPO, the Transportation Advisory Committee, and I've dealt with some of these drainage matters in the past. So if Mr. Fobbs, after you discuss it with him, if you'd like me to get involved with you and facilitate something with the DOT, try to, take some action, I'll be glad to do that, sir. Just let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Outlaw. Other comments from commissioners? I'll tell you, I just wanted to again mention new home permits. I think this may be the largest month in December, which is normally a month that falls off some, but we had 45 new home permits issued in the month of December. I don't remember us having that many in one month since I've been a commissioner, quite frankly. So Nash County is certainly growing. The permits have been very heavy all year. I intended to get a total of it, but I didn't get a chance to go back and look through all the months. But I think our inspection department is doing a great job to issue that many permits in one month and keep all the inspections done. I do look at that report. If a commissioner ever wants to look online and see how many inspections they do in a day, you can just go to the Nash County Inspection Department. There's a place there where you can get a permit list for the day, and it'll show you how many inspectors we have doing inspections that day and what addresses they have. As a contractor, we always look at that and make sure they got us on the list, and hopefully that we get the inspector that we want. But quite frankly, the department now, I don't know that we have any that we don't want. They all do us a great job. But 45 new permits is, if we do that every month, it's 540 in a year. And again, that's well over $100 million worth of investment in a year. And we add that onto what our new department is doing. Certainly, it is helping Ms. Sumner and Mr. Lamb do their job by increasing revenue in the tax department. But I think the inspection department is doing a great job of what they are charged with. I'd just like to mention one more time, if I could, on behalf of the board, the service awards that we gave out today, and how valuable these employees are. They have been here a long time. Of course, all employees are valuable, but on behalf of the board, we certainly thank you for your many years of service. Any other comments from commissioners? Ms. Leggett? Excuse me. Mr. Bill, I think I called her Ms. Leggett, then I'll get to you next, sir. I may have been looking the wrong way, but I saw her hand.
Mr. Chairman, you mentioned about the building inspections. A couple months back, we discussed the backlog and the environmental health about sewer inspections and such. Have you had an update from them on how that backlog is catching up, or what the status is there?
It is much better than it was. We got all of it filled again. Of course, it depends on COVID and who we got out sick. It still has some longevity to it. I think we've got it down now to somewhere between 2 and 3 weeks maximum is what it looks like, but it's something that Mr. Hill is continually working on, and we can get better there, yes. Certainly. Mr. Belfield?
Well, I was going to ask a question as it relates to the population here in Nash County from the census. I know it's not official yet, but do we have any indication on population increase, decrease?
I actually called Mr. Tyson about middle of the week, trying to prepare for another meeting I got later in the week to ask that very question. And unless it's an update from about Wednesday, we don't have anything at all to indicate where we are. Do you know of any different than that, Mr. Lamb?
Statutorily, the report is supposed to be given to the president by the 1st of January, but I have it was anticipated that it was going to be delayed.
Yeah, the last thing I read said it would be done by the end of January. I read some article over the weekend that, but I don't think we know anything, Mr. Bellfield. I could really use an update for something we got on Wednesday, but I don't think we're gonna have that.
Yeah, I did read in the paper last week where they were talking about people relocating from other states during this pandemic, COVID-19. I believe it was saying about 16,000 a month. I think that's what it said. It seemed like that's a mad rush. People want to locate in North Carolina. So I was just wondering if any of that location, relocating, is here coming to Nash County. I know in my neighborhood, 2 families have moved in there from the state of New York, not New York City, from upstate, have moved.
Well, if we're building 540 new houses a year, which, again, is averages, I don't think we got that many people in Nash County that's moving from one house to another, and our backlog or our availability of houses is still extremely low. All the realtors are complaining about it. And so the answer's got to be yes. We got people moving into Nash County, I would think.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lamb?
By law, the census is set as it is situated April 1 of 2020. So future estimates, which many government funds are tied to estimates, not just the actual census done every 10 years, will reflect that increased growth. But you're absolutely right. Apparently, people are moving from New York and New Jersey, partly because of the pandemic, and we should be a beneficiary of some of that. But we will not get that in the census that we're going to be given at the end of January. Those numbers will be reflected in future estimates.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other commissioner comments? Mr. Lamb, we'll move to item number 24, which is the manager report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This Saturday, January 9th, our Recreation and Senior Service Department will host a free medicine giveaway event where participants will receive an average of $150 worth of free medicine and supplies. This is a drive-through event located here at the Claude Mayo Administration Building from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Citizens may pre-register to select the items they want, but that is not a requirement. Those who do not pre-register will receive a pre-made bag of items. To date, more than 500 individuals have pre-registered. If you want any further information, contact the Senior Center. I believe Commissioner Outlaw mentioned the agenda for the second meeting. Just want to remind everybody that that will be on a Tuesday, January 19th, due to Martin Luther King holiday, being on Monday, January 18th. We'll also be getting our new board picture taken at 1 o'clock on that day. The meeting will be at 1:30, right? Regarding the building permits that the chairman mentioned, the budget-wise, just give you an indication of where we are. We budgeted $370,000 in building permits this year, and we're already at 267, or 72%. So that's an indication, and we make our budget estimates based on past performance, as well as we want to be conservative, and we might have been a little more conservative this year with COVID, not realizing that all these indicators, everything seems to be doing okay, most things, but 72% budget after 6 months is certainly great and indicates what the chairman indicated, that there is a lot of growth here in the county. Sales tax, we just got this morning the sales tax numbers for November, and it was $1.535 million. So through 5 months, we're ahead of where we budgeted, which again was something that we were concerned a year ago or so, that we were going to not collect the amount of sales tax that we have in the past, but we are actually ahead of past years. Registered deeds, to give you another market activity indicator, we're at 63% of budget, 228,000 we've collected through 6 months out of a budget of 360. Excise stamps, or excise taxes or revenue stamps, we're at 82% of budget, 248,000 out of 300,000 we have collected after just 6 months. So there is a lot of not only new construction sales, but there appears to be resales of real estate in the county. We do have a few things that are down, and that's a result of the court system being closed for the last 6 months or so. Court facility fees, court processing fees, jail fees, those are things that are down. That's not all bad that jail fees are down. That means less people are in the jail. I will say that gun permits are up drastically. We budgeted 70,000 this year, and we're at 63,000. So we're at 90% after 6 months on gun permits. We continue to have, and I think a lot of it's related to COVID, vacancies in detention officers, DSS, health department, and several other county departments. We've got a few openings in EMS, but we are seeing it being very hard to get new people to come and work for the county, not because of the benefits, but just because of personal issues, child care, and other things that is a hindrance for some people to come back to work at this time. But other than that, that's about all I have. If there's any questions.
Any questions of the manager from a commissioner? Okay, thank you, Mr. Lamb.
Okay.
At this time, we do have a closed session scheduled. Closed session is for economic development, for matters of attorney-client privilege, and for personnel. Do we expect, Mr. Durham or Mr. Lamb, any action to be taken after closed session?
I do not.
Do not?
Hope not.
Okay. It won't be any action taken on personnel if that's your concern, sir, I don't think. Will it, Mr. Outlaw?
I'm not telling.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay, if that's the case, I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session at this time, and before I take that motion, I do want to thank Ms. Regan for being here today. Yes, ma'am, and your company for allowing you to spend this much time with us. I'm not sure they knew you'd be here this long, but I loved every minute. We certainly appreciate you being here, and we look forward to using your machine moving forward.
Excellent.
Thank you. All right, entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Combs, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Second by Commissioner Belfield. Before I vote on that, am I missing anything, Mr. Boone, or y'all are here for something in closed session? We are. No, I'm not asking you to leave. I just want to make sure I hadn't overlooked something on the agenda. We aren't there yet. But with that said, all in favor of the motion to go into closed session, let it be known by saying aye. Any opposed by a light sign? All right, motion. We closed our closed session. No action is needed in open session concerning the items that were in closed session. The personnel matter was finishing up the evaluation on our manager for 2020. That committee, which consists of Commissioner Outlaw and Ms. Wells, will be meeting with the manager at a convenient time for everyone to go over that evaluation. With that said, one other comment. In February, we normally do a state of the county. I do intend to do that the first meeting in February, and I have asked the board to give me any points they would like to have covered, and Stacy, your staff got anything. You've been real good about providing me with items to discuss. The manager, clerk, anybody else got anything that wants said, I'd love to hear from you by about the beginning of the fourth week of January, so I can get it put together. But with that said, anything else need to come before the board? Z, do you have anything else? Okay. Entertain a motion to close the January meeting.
And that's supposed to be a recess meeting?
I don't think so. Our next January meeting is a scheduled meeting, so we wouldn't recess to that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. All right. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Move adjourn.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Belfield. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a light sign. We stand adjourned. Thank you.